Okay, Vincent, we're live. I'll let you decide what you want to talk about.
Oh, okay. Well, we were just talking about your thing with Samuel Tawid, and we were just talking about how you do see things out of the Islamic world that you wouldn't like, and it's not propaganda. It's real. I mean, I did see on the TV that girl in Iran that was put on trial for rape and saying, well, my rapist should be up here instead of me, and like, let's actually look that up because that was a very popular one. And that's,
Hmm.
she would, to say that it's just propaganda is a little bit dismissive and, dismissive of reality. If it's happening, it's happening. And, okay, let's see. Was, who was the woman in Iran put on trial because she was raped? Oh, Atefa Sahiale was a 16-year-old Iranian girl executed in 2004 in Nika, Iran. She was convicted of crimes against chastity and adultery after being raped repeatedly by a 51-year-old man, Ali Darabi, a former Revolutionary Guard turned taxi driver. Under Iran's interpretation of Sharia law at the time, a rape victim could be accused of adultery if insufficient evidence, for example, four witnesses corroborated her claim of assault, effectively criminalizing her for the act. Atef's case escalated when, during her trial, she removed her hijab and protested against the judge, Haj Rezai, who sentenced her to death by hanging. She reportedly confessed under the coercion and faced additional charges for her defiance in court. Her execution sparked international outrage, with groups like Amnesty International calling it a violation of juvenile justice and human rights, as Iran had signed the International Convention on Civil and Political Rights, barring execution of minors. Okay, like, something like that comes out, and who's going to want to move to Iran?
But I'm not saying people go to Iran.
Okay, but you're acting like, it's
Okay, I mean,
propaganda.
okay, what interpretation of anything under secular Koranism could reproduce a situation like that? Tell
Okay,
me.
no, oh, that's not the point. The point is that his point was about the barbarity of Islam, and here's a very good example of it.
And I'm saying that their civilization crashed and burned because they broke their own rules. They don't even get the First Amendment.
Okay, Iran hasn't crashed and burned, and you know,
Well, okay, crashing and burning. They had a revolution. They rejected the rule of the Shah of Iran, who was a puppet, whom they felt was a Western puppet, and now they have an independent foreign policy, and very few countries in this world dare to defy America, and that's why they are hated by America and the West, who want to exploit it for its oil and give it a bad press. It's not just Iran that was
okay, what do you
really
mean
good.
bad press? If you're executing 16-year-olds for getting raped, that's your own fault. It's not America's fault or bad press. That's just
It's
reality.
something to do with a Revolutionary Guard. I didn't get all the story, but you mentioned
That
he was
doesn't matter. What, just because it was a Revolutionary Guard who raped her, everything's fine now?
Okay, I don't know. Look, I don't know. I don't know the ins and outs. You just casually read something.
How do
It
you need
happened.
to know the ins and outs about a 16-year-old being executed for rape?
Wait, well, what was she charged with?
She was charged with adultery and, whatever, sexual lewdness.
Okay, so they interpret adultery as attracting the death penalty, right? Like Jews. Is that what it's about? That she was guilty of adultery and was executed for adultery.
Yeah, what more information do you need?
Well, I'm saying under secular Koranism, there is no stoning. It's not a death penalty to be convicted of adultery. And that these Muslims got it from the Jews anyway. But for Christians, it's like it's okay for Jews to stone people. It's fine when they do it, but when Muslims do it, whoa.
But Jews right now aren't stoning people.
Okay, but the point is that stoning is something that is Old Testament, right? And it's like, oh, okay, that's fine. The Jews can do it. Oh, the Muslims do it. Ooh. I mean, this is a hypocrisy that I can't stand. But anyway, and it's not like I'm proposing to reintroduce stoning. I made such a point. I'm not of saying I'm not going to be doing that. But again, it's like, oh, do you know this is what they do? Ooh. So I mean, okay, I don't know. I mean, people keep saying that. Of course, there's nothing I can do about it other than to say that there is no penalty for stoning in the Quran. If you want that sort of thing, you have to go to the Talmud or the Torah. But I guess even these Muslims wanted those punishments because they obviously didn't think that the Quran was being harsh enough.
I don't know what to tell you, Claire. I mean, you were talking about Islam and he was talking about rape, and here's a prime example of how women are not protected from rape.
Well, nobody's protected from rape. So
no, well, she not. Look, a woman can be executed for being raped.
At a typical defense to, okay, there are women who make false rape accusations, right?
But this wasn't the case for her. She wasn't accused of making
we're not
false...
talking about this particular. I don't know anything about her. I'm just saying that there are women who make false rape accusations. Yes, do we agree on that?
Yes, I don't see what that has to do with this, but yes.
And why do you think they make false rape accusations?
I don't know, but
okay, I mean, the conventional thing is that I didn't do it willingly, I was forced, therefore I'm not guilty. And even now, I mean, there are lots of women who, they sleep with the whole football team and then pretend that they were raped because they felt ashamed afterwards. So they're going to try and get that, say that. So we don't know. All we can do is try and give people a fair trial. Yes, all we can do. There are lots of false accusations, people, lots of horrible crimes being committed, and sexual intercourse without consent is very hard to prove because there's only two people there at the time, so it's one person's word against the other. Yes.
Okay, Claire, this has nothing to do with the fact that she was murdered for being raped. This has nothing to do with...
Executed for adultery, as far as the Iranians are concerned. Yes?
Okay, classifying being raped as adultery, that doesn't mean she wasn't executed for... She was executed for being raped.
Okay, can you please give me the link to this story that you were reading?
Look her up in Grok.
What's her name again?
Hold on, I'm in the kitchen. I'll have to get it for you. But I read it right to you from Grok. It's not like I made it up.
I know, I wasn't really listening, okay? I mean,
Of course you weren't, Claire. It wasn't that important to you.
No, because it's like, oh, shock
Shocking.
horror, something terrible. No, it's those Muslims. So I mean, all we can do is say, what was she, what was she accused of? How was she punished? What were the circumstances? And there's a lot of stuff that, it's not straightforward because, it's something to do with the Revolutionary Guards.
How does that change anything?
Change what from what? Am I saying that women who are raped should be executed? Have I ever said that?
No, but you're just saying, oh, shock horror. Like, what's the big deal? Why are you so all upset? You know what I mean? And, you're the one in that thing with Samuel Tawid that said that Islamic countries punish rape. And obviously, yes, they punish the rape victim.
Yeah, please, can we have the thing so we can go through it properly?
I'm sure you're going to try to find a way to, exonerate the Iranian government for doing this.
I am not proposing to.
Okay, her name is. Are you ready for her name?
Okay.
Are you ready for her name?
I was hoping you'd just forward the whole thing to me.
Well, I have to find a news article about her now.
16-year-old.
Okay, she has a Wikipedia page.
Okay, and her name is
Atefah, Atefeh, Atefah. Shahali, Sahaaleeh.
Executed in 2004.
Yes.
Okay, her parents separated when she was young, and her mother remarried. Then her mother died in a car accident when she was 5 years old. At the same time, her younger brother is said to have drowned in a river. Her father became a drug addict, and she was forced to care for her octogenarian grandparents. But she was described as a lively and intelligent girl. She was convicted of crimes against chastity when she was 13 years old. Following a police raid, she was discovered alone in a car with a boy. She was jailed and given 100 lashes. While in prison, she was further allegedly tortured and raped by prison guards. She told her grandmother that she could only walk on all fours because of the pain. In the following years, she was arrested twice, more for crimes against chastity, and both convictions were punished by flogging and jail time. It sounds like she was a child prostitute. In May 2003, Atefah was arrested at home and charged with adultery and immorality. Authorities presented a report which they claimed supported the charges against Atefah, but the only signatures on the report were police officers and other local authorities. The judge presiding over the trial was Haji Rezai. After Rezai interrogated Atefah, she confessed to having sex with Ali Darabi, a married 51-year-old ex-Revolutionary Guard turned taxi driver. Atefah was raped and repeatedly by Darabi over the previous 3 years. When Atefe realized she was losing her case, she removed her hijab and acted seen as severe contempt of the court and argued that Darabi should be punished, not her. She even removed her shoes and threw them at the judge. Rezai sentenced Atefe to death. Her lawyer appealed to Iran's Supreme Court in Tehran, where the verdict was upheld due to Atefe's confession and 3 prior convictions for similar offences. According to the BBC, the documents presented to the Supreme Court described her as 22 years old, but her birth certificate and death certificate stated that she was 16. A witness stated that a judge just looked at Atefe's body because of the developed physique and declared her as 22. And her father alleges that neither the judge nor even Atefe's court-appointed lawyer did anything to find out her true age. Okay, I mean, her father should know how old she is. Execution.
Her father was a drug addict. So I'm sure he wasn't, brought
well, I
in.
mean, you would think that he would know how old his own daughter was. She was publicly hanged from a crane in Neckar on August 15, 2004. Atefe's execution is considered controversial because, as a signatory of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, Iran promised not to execute anyone under the age of 18. According to a 2004 press release issued by Amnesty International, Atefe was the 10th minor Iran had executed since 1990. They declared her execution to be a crime against humanity and against the children of the world. After the execution of Atefe, Iranian media reported that Judge Rezai and several militia members, including Captain Zabihi and Captain Molai, were arrested by the Intelligence Ministry, pursuant to the continual complaints filed by Atefe's family and heavy international pressure about her execution in a way the judge had mishandled the case. The Supreme Court of Iran issued an order to posthumously pardon Atefe. Okay, so they admitted they were wrong. Right. And the BBC made a documentary of it. And so there you go. But she's an unusual case, right? But anyway, the point is that
okay, it wasn't against the law to kill her for adultery. It wasn't like the law was broken in Iran, in order to execute her.
Yeah, and but in Iran, what was her crime? So she was charged with adultery. So she was married. Was she married?
No, she was 16.
Did she say she was married?
No, she was 16.
Yeah, so it's really weird that she was even accused of adultery, because you can only commit adultery if you're married.
Well, maybe he was married. Maybe the husband was married.
Yeah,
So, I mean, the rapist was married.
Yeah, the rapist was married, so it was he who committed adultery. But as far as she was concerned, she was just fornication. She was just guilty of fornication. But anyway, she removed her hijab and threw shoes at the judge. Okay, but yeah, okay. Can we agree that this is an atypical case? Because of he's a Revolutionary Guard, and maybe there was stuff happening. But anyway, she's been pardoned, albeit after she was executed.
After her death, Claire. After they murdered her.
Yeah. But the whole thing is, I mean, I still don't get why she was executed, because she didn't commit adultery. It was the man, she said, had raped her, who was committing adultery. So this whole case, I like to think is not going to be typical. But anyway, this is the sort of thing that won't be repeated under secular Koranism. The whole thing is highly irregular anyway. I mean,
Okay,
where does
it
it even
must be.
say in the Quran that fornication is adultery?
Well, she slept with a married man, so yeah, she was practicing adultery.
No. This is how it works. If a married person has sex with an unmarried person, it is the married person who is committing adultery, while the unmarried person having sex with a married person is only guilty of fornication. But can we agree that I don't even understand why she's accused of adultery? Okay, we can ask Grok. If someone unmarried has sex with a married person, who is guilty of adultery? Which of the parties is guilty of adultery? So my understanding is there's only one person guilty of adultery, and it's a married person. You can't be guilty of adultery until you're married. In the context of adultery, which traditionally refers to a breach of marital fidelity, the married person would be the one guilty of committing adultery. This is because adultery specifically involves a married individual engaging in sexual relations outside their marriage, violating the commitment made to their spouse. The unmarried person, while potentially acting immorally or unethically, depending on the circumstances, is not technically committing adultery since they're not bound by the marital vow. Legal or cultural definitions might vary, but this is a standard understanding based on the concept's roots in marital trust and obligation. So, I wouldn't use, Atefe Sahale as, typical of anything, because so many things about it is highly irregular. But yeah, I know the BBC and Discovery made a documentary about it, so, whatever.
Claire, you're missing the point. The point is that statute was on the books in Iran. It was on the books. So she was.
Yes, I don't agree with Iran, do I? Why is everybody accusing me of wanting to repeat the shit in Afghanistan and Saudi? And why did I bother to call my thing secular Koranism in order to distance myself from their kind of shit? And again, it's like, oh, you want to repeat the same sort of shit in Iran and Saudi and Afghanistan in the West. I don't know why you're saying that now.
That wasn't the point. No, that wasn't the point of your conversation with Tawid. It was the point of your conversation with Tawid was that a woman can be raped under Islam.
A woman can be raped under
a woman, but she can be executed for being raped under Islam.
Okay, are you sure? Let's ask Grok. Is it true that a rape victim under Sharia attracts the death penalty? This sounds very unjust.
Well, how do you think it happened in Iran?
I don't know. Everything is irregular.
Okay.
Okay, executed because she threw off her hijab and
Oh, so it's
threw.
okay if she was executed for that?
Okay, so I'll just read out Grok's answer. Because the whole thing is highly irregular, and I keep saying, maybe it was because she was having sex with an ex-revolutionary guard. Okay, let's look up what the significance of being a revolutionary guard. So,
What does that have to do with it, Claire? You're trying to justify this?
no, I am not. I'm trying to tell you why all these details are irregular, right? Because she got involved with somebody high up, i.e., somebody, it's like, she had, somebody in America had sex with somebody who's high up in the CIA, and then she came to a sticky end. It's that kind of idea. Okay, so the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps, IRGC, is a multi-service primary branch of the Iranian armed forces. So yeah, I guess he's cut some kind of big cheese in Iran.
What does that have to do with it? What does that have to do with it?
It has something to do with the irregularity of her case.
Okay, first of all, how do we know that they didn't just do this because they were, shamed into doing it? And did they change the law? Is it now, what law were they making up? This obviously was on the books. The punishment was on the books. And this is the punishment in Iran for being a rape victim. Whether they always apply it or not is different, but it's not illegal to execute somebody for being
Okay, I'm looking it up now. I'm actually looking up. Is it true that a rape victim under Sharia attracts a death penalty? Okay, can I read it now?
Okay, but you framed it. Okay, you framed it in that. But if you say rape victims, this means that she's been exonerated because, ask it if there aren't 4 witnesses to rape, can she be executed for adultery?
Okay, I mean, let's first establish whether rape victims are executed under Sharia. Wouldn't that be the first step?
It's going to say no because she's already been classified as a rape victim. You have to ask if you have to be more specific than that. It's going to say no because if she's classified as a rape victim, then no, she wouldn't be executed. But if she's classified as an adulteress, yes, she would be.
But I just read to you. Oh my God, why is everybody being so crazy today? So I've just explained and I read out to you what Grok said, that if an unmarried person was having sex with a married person, only the married person is guilty of adultery. Okay? And then we go back to the case of
Wait, what about under Islamic law? That's Western law. What about under Islamic law?
No, you just said it's a standard understanding.
Let's ask if it's under Islamic law, because that's different than Western law.
Okay, and then according to the Wikipedia entry, she was found guilty of adultery, but then she's not married. So I'm just saying everything about it is highly irregular, and I was trying to explain it because she was involved in with this revolutionary guard.
That has nothing to do with it.
I'm not justifying it. I'm trying to explain why the facts are so weird in her case.
Okay,
because she's not even married, so how can she be guilty of adultery?
Well, first of all, hold on. I want to ask Grog. Let's ask Grog. Okay. Under Islamic law, if an unmarried woman has sex with a married man, is she accused of adultery or just fornication? Okay, it's complicated.
Yes.
Wait, no, well, just because it's complicated doesn't mean that she couldn't have been accused of it. Hold on.
No, I mean, all we're interested in is what is a penalty? Is it really true that if you're a rape victim, you get executed?
Here,
And
under
that
Islamic law, it specifically applies when at least one party involved in the act is married.
am I
Okay.
waiting for you to do something?
No, you're not. But okay, the point is that okay, can you be executed in Iran for adultery? Let's just ask generally.
I think the answer is yes.
Yes, under Iran's legal system, which is based on combination of Islamic law and statutory codes, a person can be executed for adultery. Okay, so it's okay. Whether or not she was a botched case, it's still legal to execute people for adultery in Iran.
Yeah, and one of the reasons why I created secular Koranism was to distinguish my interpretation of Sharia from their kind of Sharia. So I am not proposing to execute adulterers.
That wasn't the point that you were having with Tawid.
Oh, what was the point?
The point was about women and rape under Islam.
Uh, but we've agreed that Sharia does not execute rape victims, right?
If
Grok is
she's
saying
if
that.
No, if she's accused, if she's raped and she's married, yes, she's accused of adultery and can be. If she's accused of yes, if she's been raped and accuses her and she doesn't have four witnesses, yes, she can be put to death for adultery.
Shall I read the answer from Grok?
Yeah, but that's if she was okay. It has to if there were four witnesses to her crime and she was raped, then yes. Ask it if a married woman practices adultery or gets raped and there's not four witnesses to claim that it was not consensual, can she be put to death?
Okay, are you saying that if any woman is raped, she has to produce four witnesses to testify that she was not consenting? Is that your position?
Yes.
Okay, I'm saying it's not the position, and I want to read what Grok's answer is to the question: is it true that a rape victim under Sharia attracts a death penalty?
Of course
Can
it's
we
going
read
to
that?
say no. No, of course it's going to say no because of the way you worded it, but go ahead.
How do you want me to
Here,
word
I'll
it?
word it. I'll word it.
Okay, while
Okay.
you're wording it, let me read this thing. No, it is not true that a rape victim under Sharia law automatically attracts the death penalty. This is a common misconception that arises from a misunderstanding or misrepresentation of Islamic legal principles. In classical Islamic jurisprudence, Sharia, rape is considered a serious crime, distinct from consensual adultery or fornication, zina. It is typically classified as a form of hiraba, brigandage or violent crime causing public disorder, or as coercive zina, depending on the school of thought. The punishment for the perpetrator, if proven, can be severe, ranging from flogging to execution, based on the discretion of a judge or the specific circumstances, such as the use of force or threats. The victim, however, is not held liable for the crime, as Sharia explicitly recognizes coercion as negating consent and thus exempts the victim from punishment. The confusion often stems from the evidentiary requirements for proving zina, consensual extramarital sex, which demands for upright male witnesses to the act itself, a deliberately high bar to protect individuals from false accusations.
Okay. Under a strict traditional interpretation of Islamic Sharia as applied in certain jurisdictions like Iran, a married woman who is raped but cannot produce 4 male witnesses to prove the rape could theoretically be convicted of adultery.
Okay, I was just about to, read the first paragraph of this idea that a rape victim has to produce 4 witnesses. Can we just reread it, because I don't think people get it?
Well, that you didn't put in those 4 witnesses. You just said raped. If she's found not guilty, of course she's not executed. But if she's a married woman and she's raped and she can't produce 4 witnesses, theoretically, yes. And we know technically, even though that girl didn't commit adultery, if she had committed adultery, then the execution would have been, kosher.
She wasn't even married.
What?
That's
not the point. The point, if she was married, she could have been executed for adultery.
Okay, I need to digest what it actually means. Okay, so can I read it so I understand it? So the confusion often stems from the evidentiary requirements of proving zina, consensual extramarital sex, which demands 4 upright male witnesses to the act itself, a deliberately high bar to protect individuals from false accusations. If someone claims rape but cannot meet this threshold, for example, by lacking 4 witnesses to the assault, critics argue that some interpretations or misapplications of Sharia might treat it as an admission of consensual zina, potentially exposing the accuser to punishment for QADF, false accusation, or zina itself. However, this is not a universal rule in Sharia, nor is it the intent of the law. Many Islamic scholars and jurists, both classical and modern, emphasize that a rape victim's testimony, supported by circumstantial evidence, for example, physical signs of assault, medical reports, can be sufficient to prosecute the rapist under tazir, discretionary punishment, bypassing the strict 4-witness rule applied to consensual zina. For example, the Maliki school of thought historically allow for broader evidence in rape cases, and contemporary Islamic legal systems in some countries adapt these principles to modern contexts. In practice, outcomes depends heavily on the specific legal system of a country claiming to implement Sharia, as well as cultural influences that may deviate from Islamic law. There have been documented cases, such as in part of Pakistan under the Hudud Ordinances 1979 to 2006, or rare instances in Saudi Arabia, where victims face punishment due to judicial errors, cultural biases, or conflation of rape with zina. These cases, however, are widely criticized by Muslim scholars and human rights advocates as misapplications of Sharia, not as its proper execution. Reforms in places like Pakistan, for example, the 2006 Protection of Women Act, have sought to correct this by separating rape from zina entirely. In summary, Sharia does not prescribe the death penalty nor any punishment for rape victims. The death penalty may apply to the rapist if the crime is proven and deemed severe enough. For example, under Hiraba. Claims to the contrary often reflect either exceptional misapplications or deliberate distortions of Islamic law, not its foundational principles.
Okay, first of all, she needs corroborating evidence, to her rape. And the thing is that this happens. The thing is that it happens. Obviously, the law is vague enough that people understand it this way. And just because a law is so vague that, people, if a law is so vague that people misunderstand it, it's not a good law.
Yeah, so that's why Muslims, confused rape with consenting adultery and consenting fornication, right? And even in Western legal systems, it's also difficult to prove because consent is something in the mind, right? And then there would be, was a woman consenting? She appeared to be consenting because she wasn't struggling. Oh, but she was afraid, or she was drugged, or all kinds of arguments come up. But anyway, we have established that there is nothing in Islamic law that says rape victims have to be, attract the penalty of death.
Okay, in certain Islamic countries, if she does not provide for witnesses or corroborating evidence, she has been. It's not theoretically. She has been put to death.
Yes, the article I read, said yes, there have been cases where where this has happened, but it's because of misapplications or deliberate distortions of Islamic law. That's what Grok says. But there is no foundational principle under Sharia that requires rape victims to be executed. And when you mention Atefe Sahale, she was not even married, so how could she
Okay,
be
but she was.
guilty of adultery?
You're missing the point. The point is that had she been married, it would have been fine to execute her. It wasn't against the law to execute her. If she had been married, it would have been kosher.
If the penalty for adultery is death, yes, then that's what would happen as a matter of course. But I am not proposing to execute adulterers. As long as we're clear about that. I mean,
Okay, but it's in the
obviously, I
Quran.
created secular Koranism to distinguish my kind of legal system from theirs.
Okay, the point is that, and even if she isn't executed, if she accuses someone of rape, she can't. If she can't provide 4 witnesses to rape is insane. That's insane. Like, how often do men rape women in front of 4 witnesses?
No, okay. So this article, this Grok answer says it is deliberate. It's a very high bar, right? And let me just read the confusion often stems from the evidentiary requirements for proving zina, consensual extramarital sex, which demands for upright male witnesses to the act itself a deliberately high bar to protect individuals from false accusations.
Yeah, it's impossible. That's an impossibly high bar. So even if she's not executed, she can still be accused of zina because she's admitted to having sex without 4 male witnesses to prove it was coercion.
Okay, can we just concentrate on the wording of the sentence, please? So it says, it's a deliberately high bar. This requirement to prove zina is a deliberately high bar to protect individuals from false accusations.
Yeah, I know. If this was in the West and we said you needed 4 witnesses for rape, it would be considered obscene.
Okay, so maybe we can ask Grok to expand on this.
Okay, ask it if she can be accused of zina for reporting a rape without 4 witnesses. Not executed. Let's see if she can be accused of zina.
No, I want to know what how it protects people from
I know,
false.
that's all you care about, not the
Yes,
fact that
I do care about that as well,
that's
because I want
all
to
you care
understand
about.
the reason, and
That's
then we
all
will
you
go on
care
to your
about,
next
Claire.
question.
Okay, if a woman under Islam accuses a man of raping her, but she cannot produce 4 witnesses, is she accused of zina under Islamic law? Let's leave out the execution. Okay, she could be. She's not automatically, but she could be, depending on the circumstances, the evidence, and how the case is handled by the court. The outcome hinges on the interplay between the accusation, the evidentiary rules, and judicial direction.
Okay, so I asked Grok to give a scenario for this. Do you want to hear it?
What did you ask it?
So I basically repeated that the confusion often stems from the evidentiary requirements of proving zina, consensual extramarital sex, which demands 4 upright male witnesses to the act itself, a deliberately high bar to protect individuals from false accusations. So I asked it to please give a scenario for this, and it's done that. Do you want me to read it?
Go ahead.
Here's a hypothetical scenario to illustrate how the evidentiary requirement of 4 upright male witnesses for proving zina, consensual extramarital sex, under Sharia law might create confusion, particularly in relation to a rape case. Scenario. In a small traditional village governed by a strict interpretation of Sharia, a young woman named Aisha lives alone. One night, a man named Omar forces his way into her home and rapes her. Aisha, traumatized but determined to seek justice, reports the assault to the local Qadi judge. She has visible bruises from torn clothing, and a neighbor heard her screams but didn't witness the act itself. Omar, however, denies the accusation, claiming that Aisha invited him over and that any encounter was consensual. Under Sharia's rules for zina, consensual extramarital sex requires 4 upright male witnesses to the act of penetration itself to secure a conviction. This high threshold exists to prevent slander and protect individuals from baseless accusations. Imagine a scenario where someone might falsely accuse 2 unmarried people of zina out of spite without 4 witnesses. The case would collapse and the accuser could face punishment for false accusation. However, rape is not zina. It's a crime of coercion, not consent, and ideally should be prosecuted differently, often under hiraba, violent crime, or tazir, discretionary punishment, where a judge can consider broader evidence like Aisha's injuries and the neighbor's testimony. In this case, though, the Qadi adheres to a rigid interpretation and demands Aisha provide 4 male witnesses to prove the encounter wasn't consensual. Since the assault happened indoors and no one saw the act itself, Aisha can't meet this burden. The judge, misapplying the zina framework to a rape case, interprets her accusation as an admission of extramarital sex without proof of coercion. He warns her that if she pursues a claim without witnesses, she risks being charged with zina herself, which carries a punishment of flogging or, in extreme cases, stoning if she were married, though she's not. Frightened, Aisha withdraws her complaint and Omar walks free. Rumor spread in the village that Aisha confessed to illicit behavior, further compounding her suffering. Okay, so this is this reminds me of the Judge Kavanaugh case. I don't know if you know that there is a verse in Deuteronomy, I think, that says a Jewish court should not believe the testimony of an uncorroborated witness. So it is saying you need 2 or 3 witnesses before you believe you even think of believing somebody's accusation. And that verse came out when Judge Kavanaugh was accused of all kinds of things by this Christine Blasey Ford, whatever her name was. But anyway, in this case, Sharia has raised it even more to 4, because the Torah says 2 or 3 witnesses are required to convict a man. You cannot convict anyone based on just the evidence of one person without corroborating evidence, and Sharia puts a bar even higher. So let me continue. Explanation of the confusion. The 4-witness rule is meant to safeguard against wrongful zina convictions, not to obstruct rape cases. In this scenario, the confusion arises from the Qadi's failure to distinguish between consensual zina and rape, treating Aisha's accusation as a partial admission of guilt rather than a crime against her. Properly applied, Sharia would allow the judge to use circumstantial evidence, her bruises, the neighbor's account, Omar's lack of alibi, to convict Omar under Tazir or Hiraba without punishing Aisha. This misapplication reflects how the high evidentiary bar, designed as a protection, can be twisted in practice to harm victims when judicial discretion or understanding falters. Such outcomes, while not the norm in Sharia's intent, have occurred in rare historical or modern instances, fueling misconceptions about victims facing penalties.
Circumstantial evidence. If her accusation leads to evidence of intercourse, for example, pregnancy witnesses to her being alone with the man, or her own partial admission, and she can't prove coercion without 4 witnesses, a court might infer consent. This could shift the case against her. If unmarried, she would be accused of zina. If married, she would get adultery, which was stoning. If she admits to the act while claiming rape, for example, to explain a pregnancy, but the court rejects her coercion claim due to lack of witnesses, her statement could be construed as a confession to zina. This has happened in documented cases, for example, in Iran, or historical examples.
So are we agreed that there is actually there's nothing in Sharia that says rape victims should be
Okay, that's only
punished?
That's only if it's been determined she was raped. But if she makes the accusation without 4 witnesses, she can be accused and she has been in history and in Iran accused of adultery or zina.
Okay, so we have to separate rape and consensual illicit sex.
No, but that's not what happened. Okay, an accusation.
Okay, we're not talking about what happened. We're talking about what's supposed to happen.
No, we're talking about can you be accused of zina if you make a rape accusation without evidence? Yes.
Well, yes, because okay, if you're a woman and you say I've been raped, right, and the rapist says I didn't rape her, she was consenting the whole time. So what you have is a situation of one person's word against another.
Yes,
right?
But the accusation itself can bring a conviction of zina.
No, there is a verse in the Quran that says if you falsely accuse somebody, you get 80% of the punishment that the person falsely accused would have got had he or she been convicted and punished. So it's 80 lashes. It says in the Quran. Anyway.
Okay, so you think women should get 80 lashes if they accuse someone of rape, but they don't have 4 witnesses to the rape?
No, this actually applied to Aisha. So I can't remember what she did, but anyway, it looked bad for her, and it looked like she was committing adultery as Muhammad's wife. Okay, so she did something silly. I can't remember the circumstances, and so this verse was that any person falsely accusing a chaste woman of sexual immorality will get 80 lashes. So the idea is that if Aisha had been tried and convicted, she would have got 100 lashes, right? But anyway, it became the rule that if anyone falsely accused a chaste woman of sexual immorality, they get 80 lashes.
I know you just changed the definition. I'm talking about a woman, not a witness, a woman who is raped, who makes the accusation. If she cannot bring forth 4 witnesses, she could be tried for zina or adultery.
Well, I suppose she could be. Well, I mean, there are women who falsely accuse a man of rape, and at the time they were
Okay, just
consenting.
an accusation without 4 witnesses should not be punished for zina or adultery.
Well, it's easy to make accusations. So obviously, the idea is to, make women, careful where they go.
Okay, Claire.
This is kind of Lucia's,
This is
position
retarded.
anyway.
This is retarded.
Okay, sorry. What's so retarded about it?
That if a woman accuses a man of rape without 4 witnesses, she could be accused of zina or adultery. That's retarded.
No, she would just be punished for making a false accusation.
Why? How does the judge know it was a false accusation?
Well, taking into, the circumstances of the case, whatever, yeah.
Okay, well, if she makes the accusation without 4 male witnesses, even if there were 2 witnesses to her rape,
look, it doesn't matter about the witnesses. It's sort of like who is the court going to believe? Do they believe? There will be circumstantial evidence. Like this Omar and Aisha case, right? The neighbor heard her scream. She had bruises, and some doctor witnessed it or something.
I know you
there
keep
will
bringing
be
up
other.
You keep bringing. What if there's no circumstantial evidence? Just the accusation. So you think women should be punished for making an accusation, even if it was true? Even if it was true, if she doesn't have 4 witnesses, she's convicted of zina or adultery.
You don't seem to know that it used to be the practice in this country, in the UK, that a woman can be raped and go to the police and say, I was raped. And the policeman would say, do you have any evidence that you were raped apart from your own testimony? And if the woman were to say no, then she would be told to forget about it.
She wouldn't be. She wouldn't be accused of zina or adultery, which would carry possible punishment. She wouldn't be. She would be left free, and she would not have any, you made false accusations or anything like that. There would be nothing like that.
Okay, so let's imagine that this woman, she wouldn't, if it's only her word against the alleged rapist, it wouldn't reach court. So that'd be no trouble anyway.
No, it would reach court if she made an accusation and she was accused of making a false accusation. It could go to court.
Okay, so let's imagine a situation when it does get to court. Okay, let's just say she had. Oh God.
Okay, let's make a situation. A woman is really raped for real, doesn't have 4 witnesses, goes to the police, accuses a man of rape, and then they say, well, do you have evidence? And she says no. And then they say, well, you're making a false accusation because you don't have 4 witnesses, and so, but you've admitted to having sex, so you're on the line for either zina or adultery.
No, it doesn't have to be like that. So basically,
under your system it wouldn't be, but under many Islamic systems it is like that.
Okay, so they're retarded, but let me explain how it would be resolved. So a woman is genuinely raped, but she hasn't got the evidentiary requirements to take her to court. Like, it's only her word. No, there were no witnesses, nothing. So I guess you'll just have to suck it up and be more careful next time.
It's not about sucking it up. It's about getting in trouble for making the accusation.
Okay, so she. Okay, so I can't imagine, how it would get to court.
Because she made a false accusation. Because it goes to court because she made a false accusation.
It doesn't even get to court. Don't you understand?
No, if she made
it doesn't even fucking get to court.
Okay, let's look it up.
How it would work in the UK.
I don't care about secular Koranism.
No, I'm not even talking about secular.
We're talking about in places like Iran.
To you how the situation was in the olden days when the police were not required to believe
she wasn't
the woman.
I know, but she wasn't accused of zina or adultery. Just because she made an accusation doesn't mean she was accused of zina or adultery.
No, it just wouldn't happen. Am I allowed to explain it?
Well, I don't think you understand the law. And
what law? Are we talking about a hypothetical situation?
I know.
Or what?
In the UK, she would not be accused of adultery or zina just because she made an accusation.
This is how it would happen under my system. Am I allowed to explain how it would happen?
I don't know why you're moving the goalposts to secular Koranism.
I'm not moving any goalposts. We are exploring this situation, which I don't think you properly understood, and I think I may not properly understand it because I'm getting interrupted the whole time. So I'm saying that there's a woman who was genuinely raped, and she somehow manages to bring it to court, and she just doesn't have the evidence, and the jury believe that the rapist wasn't, that the accused wasn't guilty. So the judge can be, would have a discretion to say, this was a plainly false and malicious accusation by a crazy lady, or he can just say, well, Mr. Accused, you're lucky you got off. Off you go. So it would be a call by the judge, unless the accused person said she was malicious. I never, I don't even know the woman, and blah blah blah. So it depends, and it would be a matter of whichever. It would depend on the individual facts of the case. There doesn't have to be a hard and fast rule, because there could be cases where the woman is genuinely raped and but just doesn't manage to prove it, and the court.
Yeah, but is she accused of anything? If she can't prove it, is she accused? That's the question. Is she accused of anything?
Well, not under my system. I mean, but she
but under Islam, is she accused of anything?
I don't know that. I've told you that they have different rulings in their different fucking Islamic countries. I don't know. And obviously some judges are fine and others are not, and are stupid or crazy or malicious. Like this example of this Qadi who accused, who let it be thought that Aisha was guilty of zina. I mean, yes, there have been miscarriages of justice, but we're just talking about how the law is supposed to work. So obviously, the law should protect women from being raped. It should also protect men from being falsely accused of rape, shouldn't it? Because an accusation is very easy to rape,
that's not okay. I'm not saying. I'm saying that an accusation of rape should not lead to an accusation of zina or adultery. No, I don't believe that.
I agree.
Okay, but that's not necessarily what happens in Islam, which we're talking about, not secular Quran.
Why do we have to talk about Islam? Obviously there are miscarriages of justice, and we're not even talking about.
Is it a miscarriage of justice, or is it a technical detail in the law?
Well, according to what we've just read, we have, it's like it took them a while to get it through their thick heads that that there are two kinds of sexual offences. There's a kind of sexual offence where the two parties willingly engaged in illicit sex with each other, and there's this other kind of sexual offence when one of them was being coerced into sex, right? So there are two kinds of sexual offences, and these people, these judges, they didn't get it. They get confusing it, and that's a reason for this confusion, which has now been addressed. So it depends. Like is it? But sometimes it gets mixed, right? Because sometimes a woman might falsely accuse a man of having raped her when she, is doing it for malicious reasons, or she's ashamed, or something like that. So we don't know. So it can get a bit mixed up and confused because it started with accusing a man of rape, and then it's like, oh, but what kind of rape is it? Is it date rape or rape? As Whoopi Goldberg once famously asked, if you remember that.
No. Oh, just
do you remember that when she asked that, and then she was kind of told off for even asking that question?
No, I don't remember. But the point is, I wouldn't want to be a woman under Islam, so I would not. And I think that Tawid did have a point. You're not like you can be accused of zina with an accusation without 4 witnesses. You can technically be accused of zina, yes.
Oh, no, they addressed it. I mean, I read in this article that now the judge is supposed to direct his mind. Like, is this, if it's a rape case, then under no circumstances should this woman be, tried as willingly having sex with this man, right?
Okay, but if they can't prove rape,
just let me finish, because it's important. Because if you were accused of rape and you did actually have sex with a woman, you would say she was consenting. Don't you see? Do you see how easy it is to get mixed up with all these things? Because the defendant would say, but she was consenting the whole time. So obviously,
but if she
these facts
doesn't
will
say that, let's
God.
move on, Claire, because you're bringing up other circumstances. I'm talking only about a woman who has no witnesses, no other evidence. The man doesn't admit to rape, to having sex with her. She makes the accusation, and the accusation alone could be enough to have her accused of zina or adultery.
Yeah, and they've said they finally address the situation and have directed judges in these rape cases to make the distinction between a sexual offense when the two parties willingly had their illicit sex with each other, and a different case when one of them is claiming rape.
That's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about that.
No, you're saying, oh, look at the terrible things that used to happen, and I'm saying it's already been addressed.
Well, it happened in Iran not that long
ago. It even happened in the West, because the defendant would be saying she consented the whole time. She's only accusing me because blah 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 blah. She's a crazy lady and she hates me, or something like that, right? Because the only defense to rape is reasonable belief in consent. That the man thought the woman was consenting, and anyone who could have witnessed the whole thing would have agreed with the man too. She appeared to be saying, yes, I'll divorce her, whatever. Because, in all these rape cases, it's only one person's word against the other. And so, obviously the credibility of the witnesses is important. And you can't, make a hard and fast rule, because, it could be a false rape accusation or whatever. I mean, it's actually immensely complicated, as I think we
okay,
have
well, I don't care if it didn't happen in the West, or it would never happen in the West. Like,
I'm sure all sorts of terrible things did happen.
that's not based on legal. That's not based on the law. I mean, there's people that did things that don't follow the law, but Iran wasn't breaking the law. Or if she had committed adultery, which it seems that under some circumstances, if you have sex with a married man, you could be accused of adultery. Um, that wouldn't have been like, you know, a travesty of justice.
Look, I mean, I don't. I mean, it seems to me that you know that Atefe Saleh, whatever her name was you know she because the man she had an affair with was a member of the Revolutionary Guard. You know, I guess they got rid of her because you know he was somebody important, and she was you know just this toe rag who you know with no protectors. So that kind of explains why she got the you know why she got Sam down and whatever. Anyway, she's been pardoned, so you know she's been pardoned. They've admitted they did something wrong, and you know it's been so timing.
Well, anyway, I don't know, Claire. People are going to see cases like that, and they're going to come to a certain understanding.
Yeah,
Just like that.
yeah, it is a bit complicated. I mean, you know, can't we agree that men need to be protected from false rape accusations, and women
No,
need to
but
be protected from rape? And we've got
women need to be protected if they make an accusation of rape. They need to be protected. Just because they can't prove it doesn't mean that they should be accused of something.
Yes, I agree. And anyway, there's no danger unless okay, the judge can decide whether the woman was being malicious.
And who is
Right.
he to decide? She's made an accusation without evidence. Who is he to decide that she's lying?
Well, after the case is heard, the verdict reached, and all the evidence is heard, then you know, and if the man said, you know, I told you she was lying the whole time, she's a crazy lady, you know, whatever, I never even met her, and she blackmailed me or whatever. Obviously, there will, you know, people will take into account the individual, you know, facts of the case. I mean, or are you saying that you know any man can be accused falsely of anything?
Yeah, anyway, but yes, but making the accusation should not lead to any kind of social or legal stigma.
Yeah, it doesn't happen in the West, right? And there is no
We're
reason
not
to.
talking about the West.
Okay, you're saying their system is shit. I agree with you. Yes, we can move on now. But I'm saying it was shit, and they've addressed it because judges have been told to distinguish between cases of consenting parties have consenting to illicit sex and you know cases where one of them is accusing the other of rape. So they've addressed it. Maybe not in every single country, but you know. But you know, this date rape thing is still an ongoing problem in the West. I mean, if you want to talk about that, maybe we can find the Whoopi Goldberg clip for a bit of light relief. Because she was told off about it. But I mean, I think, you know, date rape. Whoopi Goldberg. Okay, I found it. It's she said it in a program called The View. Oh, I can't do it on this one. But anyway, I'll put it in the thing in case anybody wants to watch it. It was with Roman Polanski because it was a case of statutory rape with him. Anyway, it was 12 years ago. Which annoyingly, I'm using the wrong browser, so I can't share it with you on Firefox. But I suppose some kind of rape is worse than another kind of rape. I mean, marital rape, it was not a crime until fairly recently. I think in the 1990s. When did marital rape become a crime? (1991). Relatively recent. But I think wives who want to divorce their husband would say that they were perverts and their excessive sexual appetite would come under the category of unreasonable behavior, because there was a time when people had to prove fault in order to get a divorce, but now no longer, because we have no fault divorce. Was there anything you wanted to discuss?
Ooh. No, I don't think so. I can't think of anything. But where's my phone?
Oh, did you read my letter to Orthodox rabbis from Muslims?
No, I did not read that one.
Okay.
I did not read that one.
I haven't got any feedback from it yet. Would you like me to read it now?
Sure.
So this is a letter I recommend that Muslims write to Orthodox rabbis proposing Muslim Zionism. An open letter from Muslims to our esteemed Orthodox rabbinic brothers, in the spirit of peace, mutual respect, and submission to the one God. Dear respected rabbis, peace be upon you, guardians of the Torah and servants of the Almighty, the one true God, who is neither begotten nor begets. We, the undersigned representatives of the Muslim community, reach out to you in the spirit of reconciliation and shared purpose, acknowledging the sacred duties entrusted to our peoples by the Creator of all that exists. For too long, we have allowed division and neglect to hinder the fulfillment of our divine obligations. Today, we seek your partnership in a renewed effort to honor God's will and hasten the redemption of the world. We propose a collaboration rooted in our common monotheistic heritage, an invitation for you, the esteemed rabbis of the Orthodox tradition, to join us in assessing the four Gentile religions, Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, and Buddhism, through the lens of the Noahide covenant, which you have so faithfully preserved. We humbly suggest that such a ranking might place Islam as the most aligned with Noahide principles, giving its uncompromising monotheism and rejection of idolatry, while Christianity, with its doctrine of a begotten Son of God, would rank least compatible. Hinduism and Buddhism, with their diverse metaphysical claims, might fall between these poles. Such an exercise, undertaken together, would not only clarify our shared commitment to God's oneness, but also enable Jews and Muslims to more swiftly discharge our long omitted religious duties to guide humanity toward truth. In this spirit, we announce the emergence of Muslim Zionism, a vision that aligns with a divine promise in our Holy Quran, where God declares to the children of Israel, and we said thereafter to the children of Israel, dwell securely in the land. Chapter 17, verse 104. Muslim Zionism affirms the right of Jews to their homelands in Israel, provided it is governed in accordance with justice and divine law, such as the principles of Sharia that uphold monotheism and righteousness. Unlike Christian Zionism, which supports Israel only to advance an idolatrous agenda of converting Jews to the worship of Jesus, an act of blasphemy in both our traditions, Muslim Zionism seeks no such betrayal of your faith. Indeed, we recognize that Jewish Zionism, while noble in its aspiration, has leaned heavily on Christian Zionist support, a partnership that risks compromising the purity of your covenant. Muslim Zionism offers a truer alliance, one that honors your identity as a chosen people without ulterior motives.
Is that it?
No, I'm sorry, I lose my place when I'm scrolling down. We confess with humility that we Muslims have faltered in our own duty. The Quran commands us, warn those who say God has begotten a son. Chapter 18, verse 4. Yet for centuries we have neglected to admonish Christians with the urgency this blasphemy demands. Our silence may well have invited divine chastisement upon us, the Crusades, the scourge of Western imperialism, and our prolonged subjugation. Had we cared enough to invite the European to Islam, to offer him the light of Tawhid, we might have spared ourselves and others such calamities. This is a failure we now seek to amend. Thus, we propose a joint endeavour, a unified message from Jews and Muslims to the Christian world, and in particular to His Majesty King Charles, sovereign of a nation steeped in the Trinitarian Creed. Together, let us warn them of the peril of persisting in the idolatry and blasphemy of Jesus' worship, which provokes divine wrath and imperils their souls. Let us call them to repent, to abandon the notion of a begotten Son, and to return to the pure worship of the one God, as Abraham, Moses, and Muhammad, peace be upon them all, exemplified. The consequences of inaction may be grave, not only for Christians, but for the stability of the world we all share. Dear rabbis, let this be the beginning of a renewed covenant between our peoples, not one of rivalry, but of cooperation in service of God's truth. We await your wisdom, your counsel, and God willing, your partnership in this sacred mission. May the Almighty guide us all to His straight path and bless our efforts with success, with profound respect and hope on behalf of the Muslim community. What? What? You don't like it? You don't like?
I think it's going not to go over well with Jews.
Well, the Muslims can go on a jihad of letter writing.
Uh-huh.
Well, I don't know. I mean, what are the rabbis going to say? No. We refuse. Let the Christians stew in their own idolatrous and blasphemous juices. We don't care. We don't care, even though World War III might break out, started by those pesky Christians again. You don't want it to happen? You don't want to see Jewish and Muslim partnership?
No, it's going to be the Jews and the Hindus, Claire. This, Muslim Jewish cooperation is fantasy.
Why? Because there's so few righteous Jews and Muslims.
Well, why the Hindus treat them better. It's obvious, like practical. If Muslims are killing them and spreading anti-Jewish propaganda, why should they work with them?
Well, I think they should kind of buddy up, like, the Muslims prepared to work with Jews should sort of pair up with, Jews and say, we want to do this thing, and we think the idolatry of Christianity is a source of so much strife and conflict in the world, and because everybody basically worships their own dumb opinions and will fight to the death to make sure that their dumb opinion wins over the dumb opinion of their enemy, and this will not do. I don't see why these points cannot be made. I mean, this is what's happening after all, isn't it? I mean, don't you want to see things fixed, Vincent?
Not your way, Claire.
Well, what's your way then?
I've given you my way. I have secular paganism. At least I stand for something.
But your secular paganism is really kind of only obeying 4 out of the 7 Noahide laws.
Okay, well, I don't have to obey all the Noahide laws.
Yeah. Okay, so what I'm proposing to do is only obey 5 out of the 7, and you're saying no, we'll only 4 are required. So you're lowering standards of morality, and you want to You want to abolish the First Amendment, which is shocking for an American.
Hmm. Only we could just get rid of all this bullshit.
What bullshit?
Well, just everything Muslim, Jewish, Christian, you know.
Well, I mean, we're tidying up their shit, aren't we?
Are we?
Well, that's what I think I'm trying to do. I mean, we have to sort of grab the bull by its horns, right? I mean, we have to say that, our interpretation is going to be better than theirs. We have a more advanced legal system. There's more stuff we can do. And clearly they have misinterpreted their principles because, well, they're not doing so well, are they? And with AI and stuff, all these things can be more quickly sorted than ever before. So I don't see why we shouldn't be a force for the good of, tidying up so many. We're just doing a spring clean, aren't we? All these sort of, the Jews, they never even got round to telling Christians that it's idolatry to worship a man. They after all these centuries, what, 5,000 years or something, and they haven't done it, and the Muslims are not much better. And oh yeah, and the Christians, they just pretend not to get it.
Right.
And once they clear up the mess that's inside their heads, they'll be thinking more clearly. Because okay, the more atheism we have, the more people will just end up worshipping their own dumb opinions, right? I mean, that is the practical danger of idolatry. Everybody
Why are
will
those
think,
opinions dumb and Islamic opinions aren't dumb? Like, I don't want to, I told that guy, I didn't want to sit and talk about the afterlife, especially sitting there telling me that you know for a fact what the afterlife is. That's a dumb opinion. That's a dumb opinion that you know where you're going when you die.
was he saying that? I don't think he.
Yes, he said he knew where he was going and that there was a way to know, and he was scolding me because I said there's no way to know. It's a dumb opinion to think that you know where you're going when you die. That's dumb.
Well, I would agree. So I never make any of these claims, and anyway, we're not meant to know. And the people who think they know, they only believe that they know. They do not, in fact, know, because nobody does. But but I think even an atheist can sort of get it that the more organized religions are the ones with the more organized empires, the more organized global empires, and maybe maybe the collapse of the Christian empire will be, well, filled by different, a different system, which is already kind of obvious now, isn't it? I mean, this is the thing about empires is that what you have, okay, obviously you have to, fight a few wars to get your empire, and then you have it, and when you have it, you get this sort of Pax Romana, and Pax Britannia and Pax Americana, until the thing starts to collapse, and then there'll be separatism and regionalism and rival imperial wars, etc. But while you're enjoying your global empire, you enjoy a time of unprecedented communication and travel. and that's how ideas spread so rapidly. But it's arguable, I suppose, that because of the spread of so many ideas and easy communication and transportation, you are also in a way ushering your own demise, because then people will get you know they'll get the idea that maybe you're not the best run empire, and they have a better idea, and the better idea spreads very quickly, and then before you know it, you have adopted secular Koranism.
Claire, can we go to Spaces in a little bit? I want to go do something. I have to do some things, but I can go on Spaces in a little bit, maybe half an hour.
Okay.
Okay, I'll talk to you soon.
All right.
All right, bye.
Bye. Oh, I see Carol's here. Did you want to have a chat? I'll just read her comments because I hadn't noticed. So, well, it doesn't say in the Wikipedia entry of Atefe Sahale that she was married. So, or maybe you know a lot of stuff that I don't know. And what else does Carol say? The issue is ultimately who interprets a law and who has the authority to implement the law or decide its application. Perfectly correct. It was Nietzsche who said that interpretation is not a function of truth, but that of power. Revolutionary Guard, who is now a taxi driver, he must have been deemed unworthy to be in the IRG. You don't know enough about the case to know what this was. No, I don't know. But I was hoping you might be able to tell us a bit more. Anyway, I put the link of Atefe Sahale. That's got quite a few details, with a picture. An attractive woman. But it doesn't mention that she was married. Well, it doesn't mention at all that she was married. Which is not to say that she never was married. But you would have thought, that these things should be public. If you are married, there would be a record of it somewhere. Maybe I will ask Grok. Was Atefe Sahale married? Well, this is what it says. No, Atefe Sahale, also known as Atefe Rajabi Sahale, was not married. She was a 16-year-old Iranian girl from Nekka who was executed on August 15, 2004 after being sentenced to death on charges of adultery and crimes against chastity. So it was obviously a miscarriage of law. These charges stem from her being repeatedly raped by a 51-year-old married man, Ali Darabi, a former Revolutionary Guard turned taxi driver, despite the coerced nature of a confession and the fact that she was unmarried. The court, led by Judge Haji Rezai, convicted her. The accusation of adultery was misapplied, as adultery under Sharia typically requires a married person to engage in extramarital sex, and Atife was not married at the time of the incident or her execution. Her case drew significant international attention due to her age, the circumstances of her abuse, and the judicial process that led to her public hanging. Well, well. So there was a judge so dumb he didn't know that it is impossible to commit adultery if you're not even married. I hope he was sacked. Oh, it's Conops. Hello, Conops.
How you doing, Claire?
Long time no see.
Long time no see, indeed. What have you been up to?
Vincent and I have been producing a document centre for secular Koranism. We've sort of created a kind of secular Koranist furniture and landscape, and I will put it in the chat in the hope that somebody might read it and comment on it.
Because you already have the book, right? Are you not like sellable on, was it Amazon or something?
Well, this is sort of more fun. It's sort of like, we draft imaginary pamphlets and get Grok to write stories about, people getting upset or, party proclamations and that kind of thing. I hope you'll read it and comment. It's on Vincent's blogspot.
Oh, because you are talking to Vincent these days. Yeah, sometimes I see, because I have YouTube on my phone, so I see what's live, but I'm not tuning in that much also because the weather's really good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just enjoying my life.
Good.
Much better.
Well, it's starting to get warm here now, which
really
is nice.
Today, like all day in the sun, a couple of nice beers. Yeah, it's awesome.
Good.
I like this life. It's very good. But I know in a couple of weeks it's going to be miserable again. So, I mean, we are living in Northern Europe.
Yes, so we have to appreciate the few nice days that we have.
We have to savor it. Absolutely. And so, besides Bruno, who are you talking to these days?
I did a kind of arguing about Sharia with this. I don't even know where he's from, but he's obviously an Islamophobe that I met on X. But it's been quite educational because it was basically about rape, the law regarding rape, and it was just nice for me anyway, to kind of clear it up. Because when you try to explain things to people, you either get really confused or it becomes clearer to you. So I'm pleased about that. Carol blocked me, but she came by to say hi.
Who is
nice.
Carol? Is that the Western Muslim lady?
Yes, white Muslim woman.
Oh yeah, I got in a couple of arguments with her as well.
What did you argue with her about?
I don't know.
Oh, you were just being rude and being Islamophobic.
No, it was not rude. I was not rude. I just said what I had to say, which is, of course, the truth.
Well, she's annoyed with me for saying Sufis are idolaters. I think that's it.
Why are Sufis idolaters?
Because they worship their saints, which is a Catholic thing to do.
Well, I mean, Sufism and Islam have been Sufism has been a part of Islam almost since the inception. So it's a little bit strange that you say that.
Well, they haven't got quite the right idea because, it's sort of like God is in the universe as well as around, and, there's some kind of weird panentheism, the kind that Jen was promoting.
Well, I mean, there are Sufis and there's Sufis. So Sufism just means like the spiritual expression of Islam. It's like what's in the between the texts, what's like the higher meaning of it, and to get a personal relationship with God. I would say maybe until very, very recent time, people would say like if you are just abiding by the Sharia, just the law, then that's not good enough, because then you don't have personal piety. So you need Sufism to get into touch with the personal relation to God. That was orthodoxy until Salafism changed that.
Well, I would say that it is, well, if you really want to get close to God, understand His laws and know what they are and obey them, and then you'll be fine. All this sort of hocus pocus and mumbo jumbo about,
Yeah, but you're not
Zohar.
you're not a believer, Claire.
No,
So,
no. It's like I can imagine myself to be a believer, and it's like, no, if you really want to do it properly, you have to understand the law. And with Jews, it's sort of the Jews are actually not supposed to even begin to read the Zohar, which is their spirituality, until they're 40. Because you don't teach. Because there's no point teaching them, these things unless they already know the rules.
Don't know that much.
And I tend to agree.
Judaism for me has always been a little bit of a boring religion. I don't know, it's never really fascinated me for some reason. Islamic Christianity, I think, is much more fascinating, also because of many more people that practice it and have much more of an impact on the world.
I think that they're all interesting. The Muslims have the better book, but God, a lot of them are very, very ignorant indeed. And I guess rabbis are just basically much smarter than everyone else, because for so many centuries they've been directing their mind, or at least the ultra-Orthodox one, in attributing all good and evil to God. Well,
probably very useless exercise of time. Jewish people were dirt poor usually when the people were still in the community reading their Torahs and Talmuds and shit.
Well, they're still poor. The Torah scholars are poor, but they don't.
But because they used to listen to the Torah scholars a lot. Luckily, that's no longer the case. I would say like the age of science really started to begin when people abandoned religion, not just Christianity, but also Judaism.
Yeah, because it's too extreme. Because Judaism is the toughest, the most restrictive of all the Abrahamic religions, if you want to do it properly. So, and I'm basically saying Islam is the Goldilocks version,
Yeah,
and it's so obvious and easy to understand, but there's so much cultural baggage behind it.
Well, there's a lot of cultural baggage in that world itself. I don't know if you are looking at the news lately.
What in particular are you referring to?
Well, for example, like
don't mention Syria, because it's just like, oh my God,
I can mention even if we go to the more moderate countries like Turkey. Erdogan just arrested a mayor. It's like one big shit show. There's no political stability in almost any of these countries.
Yeah, because they've been deliberately destabilized by the West, and they're stupid, right? They are stupid, and you can't tell them anything, and they get offended.
Look, if you're so easily to be destabilized, there's something wrong with your country. There's something wrong with your religious framework.
Everybody has representative democracy.
No,
I'm saying representative democracy is a source of destabilization and division.
Internally, these countries are very stable, actually.
Which ones do you mean?
You look at European countries. We had external, actually, peace with the neighbors for a very long time, except for a couple of things like the war on terror. It's been amazingly peaceful. Also, particularly internally, like when was the last big civil strife, big civil war in Europe?
Which countries have left NATO? You call this stable? Which European countries have left NATO?
I think France at one point. No, is it not bad?
No. Like in the last few days, that's what I heard. And you're just saying, "Oh, we're so stable." And America.
Did anybody leave NATO? When who left NATO?
I think one of the little countries. I think maybe
Well, why don't you look it up?
Hungary has been saying, well, we're going to leave NATO now.
Hungary, but Hungary is a strange exception. So Hungary has never been a liberal democracy. Hungary has very difficult times to come to terms with its past. I remember some opinion polls in Hungary, and just see that the population there has not embraced any forms of liberal democracy. So it's not really a good example. Hungary is much more similar to Russia or Turkey in many respects.
Yeah, you mean it's traditional society?
And that's why I think fundamentally in the long term it's also going to be unstable, and it's going to be an unstable force with the European project. I'm much more optimistic about countries like Poland, for example. So you can have your
Poland's
conservatism.
completely consumed by its hatred of Russia. Bit unhealthy,
of course,
don't
it's
you
next
think?
door. It's been occupied by Russia, of course. They have experience with this, Claire.
Yeah, I know. I mean, shit happens, but it's interesting, isn't it, that the Poles are Slavs and so are the Russians, and they don't get on.
Well, for once, because the Soviet Union
Well, same
divided
with
them up,
the Germans and
ruled
the
them.
British, I suppose.
Hmm?
Same with the Germans and the British. They're supposed to be from the same tribe, right? They're supposed to be Saxons. But anyway,
Yeah, but Poland is a very difficult example, because Poland is Catholic, it's Slavic, but it's also it's in many ways sort of Western. It's much more Western than like Ukraine or anything, because Ukraine is still in the Eastern Orthodox, like, I don't know, sphere of influence. So in a lot of ways, it has much more affinities with Europe religiously, traditionally, than with Russia. Although it's been occupied by Russia many times in history, it's been divided up many times. So I understand the Poles. They want their nation. They are in favor of nationalism, as of course are the Ukrainians that are trying to have their country, and that's been made impossible by Russia.
as I thought, you would support the war in Ukraine.
So
It's sad.
Well, what do you mean it's sad?
It's sad.
I support country sovereignty from imperial aggression. Yes, of course I do.
You support neocon wars.
No, I support their rights to protect themselves from imperialist aggression.
You seem to have completely forgotten any lessons of history.
Which
Like
ones?
whenever there's a war in Europe, it becomes a world war, and you're just saying, "Oh, let's just keep fighting Russia."
No, I do think there has to be a settlement at some point, and I think the Russian-speaking areas cannot be taken over by Ukraine anymore. I think that would require too much manpower, but also the moment the Ukrainians would rule the Russian areas, that's going to be slaughter and terrible things. So I think in a position of strength, I don't like how Trump is approaching it, but in a position of strength, you could actually make a deal with Russia, where Ukraine, the Russian territories have to be ceded to Russia. I don't think there's another option at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to see the war over and done with.
Of course, the war should be over and done with, but it shouldn't be a deal where you think it will give an incentive for Russia, but also for other huge powers like China, to see, hey, well, the Western countries are not really defending their allies. Maybe we should take Taiwan, or maybe we should take the islands in Japan. What is what's called the Kansaku Islands? I always forget the name of these islands. Disputed islands between Japan. So lots of sources in the world for conflict, and I actually see that the way Trump wants to rule the world can lead to a lot more. How would you say this? Yeah, a lot more conflict.
Mm-hmm.
So
how's married life?
Well, perfect as it always is.
Mm.
So yeah, nothing not new to tell in these areas. Like usually when you get married, you get old and boring. But it's good.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, married life is the same as it always was. And how's your love life going, Claire?
It's going fine. Thank you so much.
You have a new man, still single.
Oh, I don't respect anyone.
You don't respect anyone. Even.
I can't, like, no, everybody's so silly and crazy and dumb and in denial.
But so if somebody doesn't share your point of view, you don't respect them, and that's why you can't have a relationship. That's why you're destined to live out your life in solitude.
Well, no, I do go out and have friends and talk to them and go to parties and that's but I don't feel the need to.
You don't miss a male companion. What's wrong with you, Claire?
I just don't. I don't know. I guess I'm very self-sufficient.
So you're a little bit like all the 30-year-old cat ladies that you disparage so much. You don't need it. You don't need it.
I
You're a
don't have
single lady.
cats.
You can get by all by yourself. You don't need any help.
Yeah, more or less. I don't need more. I think people sort of feel, oh, I've got to have a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a holiday, a blah, blah, there's a sort of bucket list, which I just don't feel I need to have. I'm content enough. You
Content with your
know,
life.
I actually enjoy kind of arguing with people and
Mm-hmm.
getting to know them and working them out and
Yeah,
working out their mental health issues.
but is it not better to look for somebody who's stable that you can share your life with? Is that not what you ask of other people as well?
They're all so stupid. Well, okay, I
Mm.
haven't met anyone. Um, I mean, yes, I have male friends, but I don't particularly admire or respect them. I think they're a bit slow
Okay,
and in denial.
in
It's
denial.
like I'm not saying anything complicated. It's just that they can't cope with it.
But you mean you bring up the same kind of conversations that you bring up with me here, or in what
Well, I mean,
sense?
obviously, it's on my mind, and it's like, well, if you're going to complain about the government and you've known me for years, guess what I'm going to say is a solution.
Well, the same old thing, right?
Yeah, and so I wonder what's wrong with them. It's like, you don't really have a proper religion, you don't follow any rules, you can't even conclude that you might need a new
But
set of
Claire,
rules. It's like, no,
is
I
it
can't,
not?
can't talk about that. Let's blame the Jews and complain about the Muslims and feel how superior we are because of our magic white skin. And that's it. It just
Is
goes
that
round and
your
round and round in
friends?
that loop.
Your friends are like that, also in
No,
real
I'm
life.
talking about the people that I
Oh,
meet
yeah,
online.
here, yeah. No, but
Oh,
I'm
oh, oh,
talking
right.
about
As
social
for
situations.
middle class people, they're too terrified to discuss any politics. Can't talk about it at all.
But would you discuss? I don't discuss much politics with my partner. I
I'm
don't.
sure you keep well clear of it.
Well, it's just
That's why you come
so.
and talk to me, right?
Well, we do occasionally touch on it, and I have my opinions, she has her opinions, and then yeah,
It's sort
what
of
can we
one,
say?
two, three. You say something, I say something, and you allow me to say something back, and that's it. That's the end. No more, no more.
But
And if you
also,
say any more, it'll
but
become a
you
row.
don't want
Or
you don't want to have like always political chats with your partner. It's not nice. You want to do something else with your partner. You want to go, I don't know, go out, go on holiday, chill out, have good conversations with nice wine. If you make it all political, it sometimes becomes a little bit sinister.
yes, I know. I know it's not safe for men to have these political discussions with women because politics is now so polarized, and obviously the matriarchy is the elephant in the room, and men are terrified of being divorced under the rules of no fault divorce. But what I find surprising is that a lot of men don't talk to other men either.
Yeah,
They
but
have no.
life is not should not be all political. I think probably 90%, 95% of my conversations with my friends are not political.
Yeah, because you're too scared to talk about these things with them.
No, because I don't always want to talk about politics, and neither do they. If I want to talk
Well,
about
then
politics,
nothing gets solved. You're
well,
just ignoring the problem, right?
you also have to live your life, Claire.
Well, my life
I mean,
is working these things out.
but that's not life.
Well, it
That
is to
is that.
me. I mean, it's what I like doing.
Well,
That's
you know
why I'm
that.
so far ahead.
Well, you know that Jordan Peterson said famously, "Clean your room," and you know what he meant by that, right?
It means tidy up your mind.
Yeah. I mean, make sure that
No, it's
yourself
tidy
in
up
order
your
first
mind.
before you're trying to before you're trying to heal the world. Make sure that you have your own house in order, your own mind in order, that you're at peace with yourself. And what I oftentimes see is people who have mental issues, people who have personality problems. They come on here and they're trying to fix the world, or they can't fix themselves.
I don't think people are even trying to fix the world. They're just, playing the blame game.
Well, that is, in their opinion, fixing the world. I mean, the other person that I sometimes tune into is Thomas White. You remember Thomas White? This
Mm-hmm.
the nagging, the whining about women. And I promise you, like the first women he will go on a date with, and if he has that tone of voice, she'll
She
stay
would be
clear of him.
frightened away.
Riding away. What is this kind of depressing character? Like,
Yeah,
every
imagine
time I listen
that
to
voice
him, I feel
shouting
like
at you
putting
in
a
your
gun
own
in
home.
on my skull, man. It's very depressing. Women don't like that. Also, because you come across as weak.
Hmm.
If you always complain, I don't have any power. Oh, the world, woe is the world. You have your shit in order. Yeah, I just think it's a pitiful and tragic as well. And it's
I
also a big
know.
cope because for many of these guys, it's also they don't want to try because they're scared to try, and then they give all these like arguments why they shouldn't try.
Yes,
Um,
because they've turned into women and they don't see how unattractive they are being. Because, if you're just whinging, then it means you're not doing anything to fix a problem, right?
Claire, have you considered going on Thomas's stream and talk to him
I have
about
been a few times.
that he is big fucking pussy and he needs to get out there and get laid, at least have some experiences with women, because I mean, I don't know, he's just so far out there, and so are the other boys there. I think even worse. That
Well, I already know what the solution is, and of course it's secular Koranism. Speaking of which, please look at the pamphlets and scenarios and stories and
I
comment
hope
on
I
them.
have time, Claire, but I'm also a
No,
very
no, it's
busy
only
man.
it's like the very short documents about 3-4 pages of double spaced. It's double spaced, if you know what
Okay,
I mean.
for me it will
So
be
so
very
so I
easy
think I think
handed.
they're kind of funny and satirical,
Yeah.
and I think you might find it funny. That's all I'm saying. It's not some heavy going legalistic, slodge.
Okay, well, I'll look into it. Post it in the chat, because I don't do like Google Hangouts and all that stuff anymore. So for me, usually it's also like I try to show up for Stephen James's what was it, millennials or the equivalent of that. But
Yes.
I just noticed like I have very little time, and then to make an appointment, I don't have like an email address anymore. I used to have all these old accounts, but can't get into these accounts anymore, and it's just too much of a hassle.
Yeah, so you're still contactable, but through Google Chat,
No, I'm actually not. I'm not contactable anymore.
right?
So yeah, I'm off the grid. Also because everybody's off the grid.
I guess they're scared.
I think also people are bored.
How can they be bored?
Well, I remember when it was like you had all these shouting matches. one of the reasons why I was attracted by the scene is that there are all these like conversations at homeowner attacks, and it was just like blood sports. There were people shouting at each other, and the
Mm-hmm.
irritations and the eccentric personalities that were very, very badly adjusted to society. There was something that attracted me to that kind of world, like how, in one sense, how free it was. That it was like
Mm-hmm.
all, yeah, no rules. It's like
Mm-hmm.
cage fighting.
Well, but Twitter's kind of, pretty free and easy, freewheeling, as they say.
Yes, because I mean, like, if I in personal life, if I call somebody a cunt, uh, this will have social repercussions. But I like the freedom that it sort of gives.
Yes,
The
yes,
whole internet.
you need to be able to speak your mind every now and then because it releases a lot of tension, right? And this is what we
Sure,
like about it. And then it's
sure.
like they still have to speak to me. I've told them the worst thing, and they still have to speak to me because they need to produce content with me. Ha, 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 ha.
Yeah, I don't know. How are you doing with? Do you have get ever in an argument with Bruno? Because you talk to him a lot, right? Or Vincent
Um,
Bruno.
I was going to find you that thing. Well, I was talking to somebody about Sharia, and he made me think of you because he sort of seems to know the Sharia, quite well, and anyway, he has this little channel, and we spoke for about 2 hours, and he seemed to know it quite well. So
Mhm.
I'm going to put the link between me and him talking, in case you're interested.
Yeah, for sure. I'll look into it.
I think he's a bit boring, but and he kept muting me. But you might find it funny
Oh,
because
he
I was
muted
getting
you.
quite annoyed with him.
But any other person that sort of returned or is coming to your stream that I might know?
Well, actually, to be honest, I've been streaming sort of more and more with Vincent because we have discovered Grok. How do you use AI much?
Yeah, ChatGPT and the
Well,
Chinese
but
version.
Grok is superb, and basically, it's produced this document center full of scenarios and pamphlets and reports and stuff, of this utopian or even dystopian society under secular Koranism. It's given us a constitution, a manifesto, and all kinds of scenarios and whatever. And and I like to think that it will one day be made into a series of Hollywood movies, so um, in the scale of Star Wars or something like that, because there's just so much, or Star Trek even.
If you were a good novel writer, Claire, you could do something with this. But usually, ideological novels are boring.
Yeah,
Um,
but not
I
these.
tried to
The
read
sitcom
what was it,
versions.
Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand. God, it was
She
incredible.
was a terrible writer, terrible writer. I couldn't stand reading anything of hers. She
Yeah,
really was terrible.
but also like the ideology is off the page, and usually what makes novels interesting is the moral ambiguity that you're like, oh, I don't know if I should root for somebody. Um, Also, TV series as well. That's why I like Breaking Bad or God, what is it? Game of Thrones. At least the first couple of seasons.
Oh, Jay is here. Did you want to speak to him?
Oh well, sure. Why not?
Great, great. I will give him the link. I'm sure he'll be very pleased to speak to you.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Mm.
Usually, always I like the bigger the panels. Usually, the better.
Well, I guess the longer I leave it going, the more people will roll up, I guess.
But
So,
you do have to do something about your viewership. I saw like 2 people watching. Come on,
um,
Claire. You used to have 50.
well, no, I'm mostly I am on X, and I know I'm shadow banned to hell anyway. But I keep going into spaces and finding that people
Claire, I
whom
still
I've
get
never heard
interrupted.
of have heard of secular Koranism. So that gives me a little bit of comfort.
Yeah.
And white Muslim woman, and hello, Carol. Oh, Jake says he can't. He's
Oh,
building a bed, but Carol is here, so I hope she will join the conversation.
yeah. Are you guys gonna make up? Kiss and make up?
Well, I hope Carol will at least speak.
Well, yeah, that would be a good thing. I mean, you're two. What you're
I am
one.
speaking.
Okay.
Oh, hi. Now I can hear
Yeah.
you.
Oh yeah, sorry. The microphone went off again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I missed the whole show until I came on, and then I went at the very beginning, and you were talking to Vincent about the Atifa lady execution that was about, I don't know, 22 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
2002. Yeah, I was listening a little bit to that. Then I had to go do something. Now I came back. So I've missed most of your shows. So I don't really know what anyone's really talking about.
Oh, you didn't miss anything. It's all good. You can just talk what you want to talk about. Yeah.
Anyway, I just wanted to say that the secular Koranism idea and everything, if you're going to implement, some form of Sharia law and something like that, people have to understand the relationship between what is the authority for implementing or interpreting the law itself. And this is what everybody keeps jumping out of the box of when they start talking about Claire's idea, is who has the authority to implement and apply the law and under what circumstances. And nobody talks about that, really. They just, go on talking about Iran.
The Supreme Court of it would be the Supreme Court of any country that has adopted it.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but I'm saying is the naysayers don't seem to bring that up ever. They just sort of rant and rave a little bit about their school of thought, or they're ranting or raving about what's going on in other Muslim countries. And it's actually what goes on in other Muslim countries isn't relevant to her idea, and it's not relevant inside a nation state.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it not relevant if you have many examples when you see that Sharia is being applied?
Because
you see what the results are.
Because Claire is essentially talking about a new school of thought. And the schools of thought don't run the countries anyway. The schools of thought don't run the countries. And this, and then
in a sense, they influence the country to considerable degrees. There actually are laws on the books in Egypt, and then usually they're based on the authority
to apply or implement the law is up to the state. It's not up to something else. And so what I'm saying is people ignore this. They ignore this. So she's saying it's going to be the Supreme Court. I'm just saying her idea is not that bizarre.
Wait 1 minute. If it's the Supreme Court, then you make the Supreme Court not just how do you say a branch of checking and controlling everything, but you make it as it's becoming a legislative organ.
No, in the United States, the law is made by the Congress, and the Senate and all that. The court, you bring a case in front of it, and they look at the validity of the law. Is this legal? So if you're talking about changing the Constitution, this is something. It's getting out there. What Americans don't like is changing the Constitution. Okay. So what I'm talking about the theory itself. I'm talking about the theory itself. All these Muslim arguments come down to authority. Who has the right to implement the law in the absence of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and how much of this law is even correct in how it's being interpreted? Okay, now she brings up her little idea, throws this all into this, and this is what people should be talking about. And instead they're talking about we can't change the law at all. And that's not true. It's not that you can't change the law, it's the authority to implement it. In other words, can you change the law and not have an attack on the Quran itself? And I'm saying yes, you can. Now, like a lot of Muslims are trying to say, no, you can't. So some are coming up with these different theories. We're going to be Quran only. We're going to, okay, I'll give you an example. Alevi Muslims in Turkey, okay, they think it's okay to drink alcohol, all right? And so a lot of people criticize them. But the truth is, their law was passed down through their systems of dedes. And at the time when people converted to Islam in Turkey way back, they were converted into the Hanafi school. And at one time, the Hanafi school did not have a consensus on drinking alcohol.
Yeah,
and they're following a very old version of Hanafi law.
Yeah.
Okay. So
older doesn't necessarily mean worse. Yeah, but that's definitely true. So
I'm not saying it's worse or not. I'm saying is authority. Who has the authority? Who can apply the law? Can the law be changed for societal norms and views? And we have different schools of thought that bring in different ideas about this. But what I'm saying is we don't have to follow any of these schools. Prophet Muhammad did not set up a school. He did not. So in theory, Claire's idea isn't that bizarre, but nobody will really look at her idea from that standpoint because some of her interpretations seem outrageous to the people that are listening to it.
Yeah,
but in theory, in absolute theory, Muslims can create a new school of law. They can decide how it's going to be implemented, who's going to decide what is the law, and do this without tearing apart the Quran itself as if it's irrelevant. They absolutely can do this. But it doesn't look to me like anyone's making a real attempt to think about her idea because of this. Now, I did talk to some religious scholar when I was overseas just to see what he'd say. I had to use an interpreter and I couldn't go into full detail. There is no Islamic stance on how a secular country creates its law. Okay, so can you have a kind of secular Islamic law? Why not? Certainly you can. Certainly we can adopt conservative law.
It sounds like a tautology to me. So you say secular, and then you say divinely inspired.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying is that the people in a nation can determine their own laws. That's what I'm saying. And I'm saying they can certainly do it. And Muslims themselves do not have to be bound to these schools of thought that are in existence right now. I'm talking about in theory. I'm not talking about if it works out when they try to do it. In theory, we are not bound to follow any school of thought. They all developed after the death of the Prophet. They developed quite a bit later. And they've also had a metamorphosis themselves within the schools.
Sure.
But we're not bound by any of that. We are not bound by that. And people need to understand that. People need to understand that when they're listening to her idea and don't get so caught on some of her interpretations, which a lot of Muslims don't agree with her interpretation.
No.
Okay,
no.
so then they get mad.
The orthodoxy would vehemently disagree with Claire's interpretations, yes.
But it doesn't matter. What I'm saying is it doesn't matter because a country can decide for itself.
Yeah,
if you believe in nationalism, nationalistic law, they can decide their own self-determination about this.
Sure.
Someone certainly can be a Muslim who does not belong to any of the schools of thought. Now, does it work out so great? When I see in reality, when I see it on the ground, it kind of doesn't work out so good. But it's possible. In theory, it's definitely possible. We're not required from the Quran or from, Hadith we have to be a Maliki, we have to be a Jafari, we have to be. It's very clear that's not there. What the argument was over authority. And there has been no consensus on authority among Muslims, on who holds that authority.
That also creates a problem.
Well, whether it creates a problem or not, we're talking about nation states. What do you want? What do people want the American industrial complex to do? Do we want to have a government that is this crazy, that's waging genocide? I don't think so. And then you got a bunch of these Christians who are applauding genocide. This is not a moral country anymore.
Which country is committing genocide again now at the moment?
The United States and Israel.
Well, Israel is not the United States, but I mean.
Well, the United States industrial complex is doing it. Trump is now doing it. I'm just trying to say here. Look, I don't get along with Claire. I'm just trying to say that her idea is not that bizarre. If you're just looking at it from the standpoint of application of the law, who creates the law, what standard somebody wants to use for a law, certainly people can decide that. Americans can decide that for themselves. Okay, and Muslims can decide that for themselves too.
Except they usually make war on each other about the interpretation.
Well, everybody's making war on themselves. Okay, that's not the point. I'm not talking about whether what's going on right now is great or so fabulous. But I am saying is there is no requirement that we must follow schools of thought. There is no hindrance, no way to say that someone cannot create a new one. And there is no way anybody can say a secular nation cannot determine for itself what laws it has. That's what I'm saying. It all comes down to authority, implementation, and interpretation. Now, she's got her own interpretation. I say someone else can have their own. But I'm talking about in theory here.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this squashing her
theory, very uninteresting if you know it's not going to work in practice.
Well, can't we even theorize? I think people are just afraid of ideas. It's like we have to squash it and we have to say it'll never happen, so don't even talk about it, and we're not interested in talking about ideas. And it's very sad. Even people who've been to good universities like you cannot.
No, but
you think like a peasant.
These like strange eccentric Western communists these days, and then you ask them, okay, so where did it ever really work? And then they say, well, maybe a little bit in Cuba. And then you give all the examples of why it doesn't work in Cuba and why some people are detained and why it was such a shit show. And they go to maybe like some Indian state like Kerala where it worked, but that was only because the national government was not itself communist. So if there's no good example in practice, I think people are going to be very wary. And if you see all the time that there is a violent struggle about the interpretation, then you might think, hey, maybe we'll try something.
Where do you think has the great government? Where do you think
countries have much better governments than?
Well, see, I don't buy into all that socialism and stuff. So this everybody's going to disagree and stuff. And usually when things come in, there's a big push for some reason why it goes in, and everybody get all hot on it, and it works for a while and then stops. Then it becomes stagnant and toxic on itself. But in theory, that's all I really wanted to say about this was, in theory, Muslims are not bound by these schools of thought. We don't have to belong to any of them. What happened in Iran 20 years ago isn't relevant. And
well, I think it is, because actually you could actually describe what Khomeini did as secular Koranism.
Well, I don't know what that trial was really about, but I will say this. If the girl had been whipped before, what it sounds like to me, just from what the small bit I heard Claire and Vincent talking about? It sounded like she's one of these girls that has the drug addict parents, and she was out kind of involved in prostitution is what it sounds like.
Yeah.
I
And
don't
then
know
she
what
tried
happened, so you
Yeah.
have to
but
bring
I'm
me up
not
to
talking
speed.
about Iran society. I'm talking about, yeah, I don't know what it was either. But I'm saying is that's from what I'm hearing, that's what it sounds like. So then, yeah, you're going to say rape. But if she was whipped before, she had a history of being alone with men. She saw that man multiple times after whenever it was she's supposed to have been raped. Multiple times. She voluntarily went to see him. And I think most judges over there are going to think a 16-year-old would know not to get into the car guy again. So I really don't know what really happened with her. I don't know.
Well,
Rapes
then it's
do
also better
happen.
probably not to comment on it, right?
I'm saying is that the culture is a little different. So Vincent was viewing this as, some big horrible thing, and maybe it was, but maybe it wasn't. I've known people, and I do know someone who got whipped over there in Iran.
Huh.
Right? They did, and so did the guy they got caught with. They got whipped. She'd been whipped twice. If you get caught the third time, it's execution. Okay, so I don't know what this girl's history was, and I don't know what they, did in the jail and all that. I don't know. And if
Well,
he was,
I know that the guards, they're bad reports coming from Amnesty International that there's like a lot of raping being done in Iranian jails with women.
There's a lot of stuff going on in American jails right now. In fact, one of them is Los Colingas Detention Center. One of them is Los Colingas Detention Center. That's that's an actual detention center. They're just ending up dead in there.
Yes, sure, but I mean, America is also not a great example of how to organize your prison system very well.
Well, I'm just saying this is all getting off track. I just wanted to make this comment to Vincent. He doesn't understand Iranian culture. He does not understand how the people function over there or anything. And if you look at this stuff and they start using the wrong word in translating and saying this stuff, you don't know what's going on. Nobody wants to get caught doing anything and getting stuck in front of a court in Iran or in the United States. Nobody wants to. Okay,
And
but everybody, every woman in Iran knows not to start cruising around with a guy in a car multiple times. Everybody over there knows not to do that. They go out in public in groups with a bunch of people. You don't go around alone with some guy.
For probably good reasons, because the religion informs that women who are unguided are fair bait or something like this.
No, they go so they have witnesses around that they didn't do anything wrong, just like in Mexico.
Well, they'll have to, which of course
just
is
like Mexico,
affair, isn't it?
Just like Mexico. Okay, this is because
Mexico
people
is also
complain.
not a great example of female freedom, by the way.
I didn't say it was. You're kind of changing the subject a little bit.
Okay, I'm going to remove him because he's just going to.
No, it's a.
Look, you could come up with an idea about secular Koranism that may work. We have a problem with the Constitution, not a problem with the Constitution. We have a rule in the Constitution about we have to have a secular state here.
Oh yeah, because that was what I was discussing with this other guy called Samuel Tawhid, who's obviously, I think he comes from a Muslim background, but he hates Islam. So he does seem to know a lot about the Sharia and all that. But
who cares? You're not okay. But what I'm saying is we don't have to adopt any of those Sharias anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
As an individual Muslim,
they always say, "Oh, it's done in this terrible way. You're going to do it. You're going to bring it to our wonderful white country." And and it's like, well, why would I? Why would I take everything that's the worst and bring it here? And
why would a bunch of white people set up the same type of Sharia that's going on in Pakistan? It just doesn't make any sense. But
white
people redefine it themselves. They can redefine it themselves.
Exactly, but I mean the trouble is that nobody wants to discuss it. I mean we're just bumping along at the bottom with Islamophobes who want to cling on to their identity of hatred and fear, even though it's low status, and they just won't understand it, or even if they do, they're going to pretend not to get it because they want to cling on to their, group identity. I suppose they don't want to be kicked out of, their online communities.
Well, they have to be objectified right now, Muslims, to justify this war that's going on. This war, and whether people want to agree or, this is horrendously horrible, waging a genocide on the people of Palestine like this. It's horrible to be trying to just inflict might for a few globalists to get rich and controlling all the resources in the world. This is immoral. And the only way you can do that in the United States, at least, has always been to objectify whoever the hell it is you're going to go to war with. That's what they have to do. So they're objectifying Muslims. And people are buying into it.
Dehumanize them and then bomb the crap out of them.
Objectify why you just don't want around. And then you have all these, Christian Republicans that are pretty anti-Islam because they want war. Basically, what we're dealing with is a country where the oligarchy wants to go to war. That's what we're dealing with. And so since these resources are mostly in these little Arab states they created back when they didn't realize, maybe we should have kept our little hands on them after World War I and II, with Lawrence of Arabia and all that. They made a little mistake. They gave away the land they thought was the worst to these Arabs, not realizing that was the petroleum right there. Petroleum and these minerals, and they're after these minerals. And Russia has more resources than anybody. I think Iran is second, and the United States is third. And it's just a war for resources, and that's who they're going to have to objectify to possibly get the American military complex to be throwing this money into it and think they're going to get away with it to the people. Because whether people like it or not, Americans could have a revolution if they felt like it, if they get mad enough. Right. So there's all this political stuff going on. But Islam itself, your idea, Islam itself, can be redefined by people in the West. And I don't see any reason to be bound to any of these schools. I don't see any point to it, except some of the newer ideas, people just get weird. When you see it in actual fruitation, it gets kind of weird, but possibly. I don't think it's that weird, your idea, in the skeleton form. I've always said that.
Thank you, Carol.
I've always said
being
that.
honest enough to say that, because so many people just pretend not to understand.
No, your idea is not that weird. Your interpretations are screwy, some of them, but it's not weird. Your idea itself isn't that weird. But it won't stand up in the United States because of our Constitution. I just don't see how any Supreme Court judges would ever say it would be okay under this Constitution. But with these globalist takeover in the United States, who knows what the American people are going to agree to, because this push towards losing all civil rights and everything, it's outrageous. It's outrageous what's going on over here.
What's happening in particular are you talking about?
Well, I'm talking about people losing their jobs over Twitter posts. I'm talking about
even now.
Oh yeah, sure, Claire. People. Anytime they hire people, they look on their Twitter. They look on all that stuff. Only reason I'm on any of this stuff is I'm too old. Nobody will hire me. There's no way I could possibly get a job. And you're getting people to start doing social media when they're teenagers. You're getting an awful lot of dirt on people. Little pictures of who they're standing with, all this kind of stuff. They shouldn't be on it at all. But everybody's using it now.
Well, it's your diary online for the rest of the world to read, and people are completely addicted to it.
But, yeah, right. Whatever the reason, yeah, that's a problem.
Well, the thing is, I mean, they do it to celebrities. Basically, it's like, we don't want to renew your contract, but you didn't really do anything that wrong.
They'll do it to anybody who's applying for a government job, Claire.
Yeah, but I mean,
and that's
it's just an additional
employer. That's a huge employer in the United States.
Yes.
And they're doing it to university professors. They're doing it to everybody.
Yeah. I mean, so much for the First Amendment.
Yeah, that's right. It's all being undermined. So if you got a country we have a huge amount of the citizenry that don't even understand that they should be against any type of limitations on free speech, you have a population that's willing to sell their rights. And this is unbelievably stupid. Unbelievably stupid.
Are getting stupider and stupider, aren't they? I mean, that's a horror of the situation.
I think it's just been a really bad. We talked before about this, about dumbing down education system and everything that went on since Vietnam War.
Okay, yeah, I mean, somebody was saying, somebody on X, he was just, he's a Gen Xer, and he was saying that the young people these days, they are so, hopelessly degenerate and can't think straight. And then this led me
I don't know if they're degenerate exactly. I don't know if everyone's degenerate so much as they don't have a collective memory of the past. They don't have a collective memory. I can tell you the government was totally shocked by what went on during Vietnam over here. And I haven't seen people get this mad since the Vietnam War over this Gaza thing. And even that is not up to what was going on during the Vietnam War here. Okay.
Sorry, are you saying that the demonstrations against Gaza are more than Vietnam? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying Vietnam is still more than what went on with Gaza. And look at how they're trying to shut it down. They were scared. They could not believe the uprising that was going on during the Vietnam War. Not just among students, among all kinds of people in this country. The government could not believe, they couldn't control it. And so this is all about controlling people and stuff. But all that's still different from your idea of secular Koranism, which is a bare skeleton idea for a new school of thought within Islam. And I don't see a problem with this idea being explored from that standpoint at all. I don't see a problem.
Have you spoken to William recently?
No.
William Briones?
No.
Because he seems invested in not understanding it.
Well, he doesn't believe in having Sharia separate from a belief in God. Okay, he thinks his view of it. Your idea probably couldn't be paraded as exactly Islamic, because he's saying because that's one of the rules. You have to believe in God. In other words, you believe in God, these are your rules. So he doesn't see it that way, but I do. I see it that it is a possibility. Maybe not all your ideas, not all your interpretations in this way, but it is certainly true that we can come up with a new school of thought within Islam. Now, is this the same as reform? I don't think so. William is always going to say that the first idea must be God and doing what God wants. And once you take God out of that equation, you're not talking about the creation of the Islamic Sharia law in his mind. And most Muslims would agree. I pretty much kind of agree with that too. But certainly a new school of thought can be developed, and not from the standpoint of, we hate all these other ones, we're going to reform. No. In the idea of coming up with something that is culturally applicable to the land you're in, that makes sense, that is what God would like to see. And you can do that in Islam, Muslims, as long as they're not negating the Quran. How can you create new law without negating the Quran? That is school of thought. That is a school of thought idea. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I'm not sure. What do you mean by that?
Oh, let's see. Okay, Ismailis. I forgot which Aga Khan, but one of their Aga Khans came up and said, we're no longer bound by Sharia law.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he picked up a glass of wine or something and drank it, something like this.
Right.
So he said, we're not, okay. For example, Imam Khomeini, he said, as long as they're not negating the Quran, these people are still Muslim.
But what does that mean?
Negating the Quran is like they're not throwing the Quran away. They're not saying the Quran doesn't have authority. If you're not undermining the Quran itself, you can say these people are still Muslim. Right? This is what he's saying. I'm saying there's a way to look at this that isn't so rigid that what I hear people talking about. It's not negating the Quran, right? To say, look, we live in a modern age where we don't really want to start maiming people, cutting their hands off and sticking in a bucket of wax in a public square. Maybe we don't want to do that anymore. Mm-hmm. Or maybe we do. Mm-hmm. But that is not a reason to say someone's not a Muslim because they don't believe the law should be applied in that way anymore. That's what I'm trying to say. You have authority, application, who has the authority to apply it. That's why I was saying that your idea is sort of, I always say that word wrong, Harjite. It's kind of like Harjite in that it's community authority. Yours is community authority. The community decides Islam itself, the direction it's taking, what it's doing, how Islam is applied. That's a community idea.
I am trying to sell it to the political establishment of the West, and obviously, if it's ever adopted, it would have to come from above. The
no community.
Saying, we're going to give you a good press, and we're going to give you a few nice interviews.
No political establishment. No political establishment that already exists will ever voluntarily give up its power, Claire. That's not going to happen.
I'm not
they just won't. I wouldn't.
This is a conservative principle. You have to adapt. You have to.
But they're not going to adapt. The only way the establishment adapts is if the masses of people.
Yeah, I know they're not open to, rational argument and neither are the people complaining about the, political establishment. But yes, I already have a plan of how it's going to be done. It's not.
But they're not interested in giving up power, Claire. No normal person is interested in giving up power. That's why when you say, that's why when you start talking about, divorce, what do you call it? Divorce where you don't have to go to court. What is that? What is that? Gosh, I'm having a senior moment here. What do you call it when you don't have to go to court to get a divorce?
Uncontested?
Not uncontested, like where you don't have to have a reason for it.
Oh, no fault divorce.
Yeah, no fault divorce. Okay, so you're saying like there can be no fault divorce. Well, women have the power in the United States now to have that. They're not going to stand there and say, okay, I'm going to give that up. They're not going to do that because it's not normal for people to give up power.
They already have. I understand. I'm aware of all these arguments, but I'm just saying.
I'm saying the arguments don't put an end to discussing the idea of a new form of thought, and secular Koranism can be a new school of thought if you would turn it into one. Okay,
well,
you have to have
find somebody who is actually legally qualified.
You're legally qualified, Claire. By virtue of being a human, you're qualified enough. You can read, you can write, you have an understanding of what it is to articulate what it is that you're trying to get across to people. A school of thought is somewhat complicated in that it has to have some kind of a framework that can logically be applied to a new question within the school. It has to actually have little rules, just like different rules of schools of law have in the United States, like what they're looking at. Yeah, this is what has to be developed in your idea so that people can see, okay, in this case, because right now when you look at secular Koranism, it's not clear what is the legal framework or logic that's being used to look at the Quran to define law. That's what's not clear. And which basically it's your idea that you're going to look at this and you're going to take the least, I don't want to say less, least ugly, least extreme interpretation, let's say, like you're saying, like for the whipping, use like a pretty much a nothing thing is pretty much public humiliation, or this sort of way. You don't have a something that someone can look at and say, okay, we're going to look at the Quran and this is how this is the hierarchy of how we're going to determine the law out of it. This is all missing from your idea, but it's never going to get there if people won't start discussing it. Really discussing this idea. What is the hierarchy that if we're going to have, in theory, if we're going to have a secular Koranism legal system, what is the hierarchy and way of interpreting law that can be repeated on each new question? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Can you give me an example of an existing, principle? I mean, you seem to be saying this exists in certain legal systems or something. So if you could give me an example of what you mean. I mean,
well, okay. In theory, they say, okay, whatever the law is, it has to adhere to the Constitution of the United States. That would be one, right? So you have the Constitution, you have the Bill of Rights. It cannot infringe on those Bill of Rights. But if you have a law that says, let me think. I'm just not a lawyer. But they have a system
to find a lawyer prepared to discuss this, but they're too afraid to even talk about it. I mean, I have tried. I mean, there are, lawyers that I know online, and they can't. They're too afraid
because
to even discuss it.
It's not a fully finished project yet. You don't have a fully finished project.
Yeah, I know. The idea. And the thing is, people, obviously there's a few holes in it, and what about this, what about that, and that kind of thing. But what I've been doing with Vincent, is that he at least has been asking these questions. What would you do under situation? And we'll produce a whole bunch of documents about how things would be done in this imaginary utopian, or some might say dystopian, political landscape.
Claire, you have ideas, interpretations of the Quran, right? You have interpretations of this stuff. You don't have anything that explains how exactly you came up with these interpretations that anyone else could predict what you would think about a new question that would come up. You understand? I don't see that. You don't have that in it.
Well,
and I'm
obviously,
not saying
I haven't got a whole bunch of precedents already.
No, I'm not. I'm not criticizing it. Look, this isn't a criticism. This isn't a criticism. I'm saying is I can look at the Quran. I look at the Quran. I don't see how you're coming up with some of your ideas if I'm looking just at the Quran, because your idea involves pretty much sort of a Quran only thing, but then sometimes you do branch out into some interpretations that are from Hadith and stuff. I just don't. It's not clear. But that doesn't mean the idea is bad. It just means it's not fully finished. And
So
I think people should try to help fully finish it.
Okay, I mean, it would help if there were any lawyers prepared to talk about it with me.
Doesn't have to be a lawyer. Doesn't have to be a lawyer. We're starting. It's a ground up idea, Claire. You have a ground up idea. Don't sit there, look at something and say, okay, now we're going to throw it to some expert somewhere. Take control of the whole thing. Either take control of your whole idea, then explain exactly how it is other people would be able to address new questions in law that could come up. Like, oh God, like,
I think you're saying that I haven't got a legal tradition, and I said, "Oh, of course I haven't got a legal tradition because I haven't even, got it going."
No, you don't have even the outline of exactly how someone's supposed to interpret the Quran. You don't even have the outline for that.
I have already. Have you read my Vincent's blog?
No, I
secularkoranism.blogspot.com.
No.
Okay.
No, but
please,
it's not.
Please
I'm
read
trying
it
to
because
explain
then
it. I'm trying to explain to you what people are looking at. The Muslims, the Muslims are not going to agree. They are never going. The Muslims, Jordan, these people aren't going to agree. It's not relevant if they agree or not.
I know.
What's
so I
relevant,
don't care. I don't care if they don't agree.
Yeah, I
because most of
understand
them are dumbasses anyway.
Okay, whatever the opinion.
But not you, obviously. But I'm just saying, they just don't like it, so they're going to pretend not to understand or distort or misinterpret it and say it's rubbish. And it's not just Muslims who do that. But what I'm trying to say is, if you look at secularkoranism.blogspot.com, you will find constitutions, manifestos, reports, pamphlets, and
Okay, what I'm looking. Okay. That's not the same thing. Okay, you know how you have the idea you're supposed to give it. Well, I don't want to say in between that. That you're supposed to be very, very obvious against Trinitarians and this sort of stuff. You know how you have that idea. And you quote what were those Quran verses?
Admonish those who claim that God has become.
Yeah, there you go. That one. Yeah. That one. Okay, you got that verse in there. But then I never hear you mentioning Quran 6:108.
What does that say?
It says to not vilify these religions so these people don't end up cursing God himself. Okay, we are not allowed in Sharia to go after the Christians in that manner.
I know. You've mentioned that one to me before. It's like, okay, Allah can take it. We can take it.
No. Listen to what I'm saying. It's a point of law within Muslims.
No, it's not.
Let me finish.
If you cannot bear to hear Allah being cursed.
This is part of Sharia law among Muslims. All right, so what you see with these dice and stuff on the internet, they're going against Sharia law, actually. But aside from that, that's not the point. I was trying to give an easy example. Like, forget about which idea you think should be right. You have these two ayahs in the Quran. How are you going to reconcile them? That's what you're not answering.
I have already answered it so many times. No, so I'm saying I'm going to follow a clear commandment, right?
No. It's a clear commandment. That is a clear commandment too.
Okay,
Quran 6:108.
So what do you think the purpose of this verse that you quoted, 6:108?
I don't care what the purpose is in this. What we're talking about right now. Okay, I'm not talking about which one is right or which one's wrong or which one someone should pick. You don't have the rule down on how you reconcile which one of those in what situation, how you implement it or when you should. You don't have.
Okay, so
this is one example. I'm saying this is one example in law. Trying to understand what I'm saying. There's many examples in law that are like that.
when principles contradict each other. That's what you're
well,
asking
from the
me.
Quran, if you're trying to use just the Quran, then use just the Quran, but you bring in hadith sometimes. So it's confusing. It's confusing your idea, but that doesn't mean your idea is a bad beginning. Do you understand? I think it is possible to create a new school of thought.
Yes, so do I agree it. But with 6108, it's for the protection of the Muslim. Do not insult those who invoke other than Allah. Do not insult those who invoke other than Allah, lest they insult Allah in enmity without knowledge. Thus we have made pleasing to every community their deeds. Then to their Lord is their return, and He will inform them. Yeah, it's too vague. And the clear verse that commands Muslims to do stuff will override this sort of, do not insult those who, it's like, lest they insult Allah in enmity without knowledge. But then there's also this verse, chapter 17, verse 108, that says Allah does not require His feelings to be protected against, people who might.
That's right. You have all these different things like that in there. How do you reconcile them and come up with the law? The what is the method being used? I tried to talk to you about this before. You don't have the method down yet. Okay, so
well, I've got the answer for you, but you still say I don't have.
I'm not looking for an answer. I already have my own answer.
Okay,
but what I'm saying is the method. You have to have the method of how to derive law from a text. So this is what different schools of law are talking about. Constitutional lawyers is how do you derive law from the Constitution? What is going against the Constitution? And I think the American Constitution is a little bit easier to understand, to be honest.
Okay, well, first, we don't, we need to consider the law. Well, secular Quran is on its own. So I'm basically saying it's only the commandments of Allah in the Quran. And that's it, we don't care about the stories and whatever. It will be, when God says do this or don't do that, and then they have to be identified and listed and numbered so we know what they are. And it's interesting that when I ask Muslims, have you got a list of these commandments of Allah? I get a blank look. We're not really sure. It might be 500, but and I ask, is there a list somewhere? And they can't seem to produce that list.
Yeah, I know. I was trying to do that too, but I was putting too many things into the list, and I was going to have to start over again. So yeah, I understand what you're saying is, and that makes sense to explore the idea. But I'm saying is that essentially, as a school of thought, as an actual school of thought, the idea is not finished. It's not finished. It's not practically. It's not practically
intelligent questions.
No, it's not practically able to be implemented by somebody else. Now we're going to have somebody else. We're going to have Sally, I don't know what. Sally Fisher is going to now look at secular Quran using the method that supposedly secular Quranists believe, and start deriving law and coming out with any of the same answer.
Okay, this is what I've already, maybe it is already a blog post. So I'm saying the Supreme Court of America is supposed to identify, list and number all the commandments of Allah capable of being made into legislation. And then obviously they'd have to agree with each other, which I'm sure will take a while because, they'll probably not, disagree about this and that, but that has to be done. And then after that list is agreed, Congress will have to repeal any law that goes against these principles.
Yeah, but that's not how our government works there.
I know, but it has to,
you can't use. You're trying to. Okay, I'm sorry. You're shifting off. You're shifting off. Who's going to interpret this? You need a better answer than this, because the Supreme Court interprets the laws that are already made as if to
Yes,
if
I
they.
know this is a purpose, but somebody has got to do it, right? Somebody has got to identify the commandments of Allah, and who else but the judiciary? Are you going to get your lawyer, and somebody else is going to get their lawyer? I mean, this lawyer has to be somebody senior and accepted, and the
Okay,
highest
but
court in the land
all
has
I'm
to
saying,
be
Claire,
the Supreme Court.
I'm not, listen to me. I'm not criticizing you. I'm saying what's missing from your idea is how the little rules to form the conclusions from looking at the Quran, putting it together and figuring out what exactly is the law that's not going to be broke. Now, what you essentially have done is said, okay, we got the, free speech and all that. We get to have those, freedom of religion. We get to have all that. But you're not getting into this other aspect. If you're talking about changing the Constitution of the United States to following this new Sharia law idea of yours, you have to have something that makes it clear what exactly it is that's going to be used and how the method being used to interpret the Quran to decide if a law is legal or not. And that's what schools of thought do. Everyone talks about laws within school of thought, but basically they're not exactly, I mean, some do now, but not talking about the method being used to derive the law. Like, what is a hierarchy, right? Like in Sunni schools of thought.
Courts, appeal courts and stuff, it's already there.
No. I'm talking about a hierarchy and how the law is determined. It's not just, okay, Shafi say this and Maliki say that, and
No,
Shias
I'm going to ignore all that shit, because basically, surely
my
you
problem
understand.
is I can't. My
Sure,
problem is
please let me finish, because when you speak, you just go on and on and on, and I'm trying to answer your questions, and you say I haven't answered them, and I'm saying, fuck the Maliki, Hanbali, Shafi, Jafari shit. Okay, we're going to ask them when we want to ask them, but otherwise we're not going to follow this school or say we're going to be Maliki, Hanbali, Hanafi. No, we're going to be. We're going to go by what the Supreme Court of whatever country we're in, we have to trust in it, right? Otherwise, we're going to be saying, oh, but I'm Hanbali, and some other Muslim are going to say, oh, but I'm Shafi. No, it has to be decided by the Supreme Court. I hope that's reasonably clear.
But it doesn't answer the question I'm asking. I don't know. Okay. I guess I'm not making it clear.
Because it rambles on so long, I don't know what your question is.
Well, okay, Claire. Yeah, that's right. It's a rambling on type of thing.
Okay, but can you think of it in one sentence so I can concentrate on what it is you are asking?
I tried to give you one. I tried to give you the one.
Okay,
that
I'll take dictation. I'll take dictation. So what do you mean?
How? Okay, are you using Quran only, or are you using Quran and Hadith? Which one is it?
I will use the Hadith where it doesn't contradict the Quran. So I'm not going to be stoning adulterers, and I'm not going to be executing apostates. Those are two examples of the Hadith contradicting the Quran.
Why? Why are you using Hadith at all?
Because some of it is useful.
Well,
I'm not going to reject everything in the Hadith.
Okay, so then Quran is number one. All right. So what's number one in this? American Constitution, the Bill of Rights? Bill of Rights, then the Quran?
No, the American Constitution would have to be reconstituted. But I mean, the only thing you can reassure Americans, okay, we have to go through the Bill of Rights. The First Amendment is sacrosanct, and in fact, Chapter 2, verse 256 of the Quran supports the First Amendment. And then the second one is gun rights. I'm not going to interfere with that. The third one is no requisition of people's homes to accommodate the army. What was it? Okay, maybe I got it wrong.
Yeah.
So we'll go down the Bill of Rights. The 27 amendments, yes. So we'll have to go through all of them.
Where's that?
Amendments, US.
No,
So,
not that. Not like that. I'm talking about a clear hierarchy in how you're going to derive law. So first of all, you're saying it has to be in the Quran, right? It can't be against the Quran. Anything. It can't be some law that the Quran has already stated inside itself, right? Do you understand? Like, okay, you're looking at hadiths for what that are useful. Okay, that's pretty subjective. So now you're going to say, okay, you have the Quran, we have rules in the Quran, but we're not going to take any hadith that, where you use the term go against the Quran, but actually what you're saying is that are not the same as the law in the Quran. In other words, stoning adulterers. We're not going to stone adulterers because the Quran doesn't mention this, correct? Okay, we're not going to do that. Okay, so that's a hierarchy. You have the Quran. Then the number 2 is hadiths that don't have a punishment that's not specifically mentioned in the Quran for that crime, right?
Right. I mean, look. The Quran is the primary source of the Word of God.
Oh, yeah. But try to understand what he's saying. This is the hierarchy. We had this before when we were talking with William. You don't seem to understand. So that's number 1, the Quran. Number 2,
it's the primary source of the Word of God.
Hadiths that do not have a different astaghfirullah, that don't have a different punishment than what is in the Quran itself, right? That's number 2, rule number 2, right? That's what you're saying. That's what I'm understanding you to be saying. Okay, so we don't have all that. It's kind of, to me, I'm not even seeing why you're even bothering with hadiths at this point. I don't even know why you're even bothering.
I'm not going to not use any of it. I don't want people to think I completely reject it, because I know some of it is very useful.
Okay, so give me an example of a hadith that has anything to do with law that
I like
isn't
what it says
going
about shirk
against
and
the
hidden
Quran in your view.
idolatry. I like what it says about shirk and hidden idolatry. I like what it says about kufar. So
why would you have that in law? Why would you have that in law?
I don't know. I mean, it's my stage, but you know, you have to make it simple, right? So you have to say that the Quran would be the primary source of the word of is a primary source of the Word of God, and you know, what will be law? The law would of course be the commandments of Allah to do stuff or not do stuff, and then you can identify, number, and list them, and then you'd have a list, right? Then you'd finally have a list. I don't know why Muslims to this day do not have a list, but I guess it's just part of their disorganization. Okay, or maybe different, you know, groups of Muslims will just you know, arrive at different numbers for some reason, and they can never agree. So I'm just going to leave it in the hands of the.
I don't know if I look. I never went to those seminaries. I don't know exactly how it is that they. You know, I don't know exactly how it is.
I think they just cherry pick. They just like the ones they like, and then
that's
they ignore the ones
speculation on
they
your
don't
part.
like.
That's speculation on your part, but they do have a school of thought, and it's pretty well defined, and they seem to know what it is. They do have that. Okay,
well,
so
I can't find a list. Nobody has offered me a list.
Because I don't know if they study the law that way, like a list, is what I'm saying. I don't know if they do that or not.
Well, it would make sense, right? You know, the commandments of Allah would have to be law, not the stories of Allah or the promises of heaven of Allah.
Well, Muslims, okay, look, either Claire, either make the cut or don't, right? If you don't believe the Muslims are doing it right, then don't do it half-assed.
I'm not.
Don't say, okay, we're going to take some of this and not that. Just don't even bother with any of that. I'm saying either own the whole idea, come up with your hierarchy of how you're going to derive law.
I have, and you keep
people are.
It's not getting there.
It's not clear how it can be duplicated by somebody else. That's the
Okay,
problem. You don't have the.
give me an actual question and I'll answer, because it's like, what about this? And it's like, you give me a concrete, a scenario, and then I can maybe do something with it. But you just keep repeating your accusation.
I'm not.
And
It's
it's
not
like,
an accusation.
okay, but you're saying I haven't done this thing, and I'm saying I have, and then I'm not even sure what you were asking me that I haven't done yet. So you gave me this example of, there's chapter 18, verse 4 that says, "Admonish those who claim God has begotten a son," and there's verse 6 or 108 saying, "Oh, don't offend these people in case they curse Allah," and I'm saying,
yeah, so they won't get that sin on them. That's right.
no. Okay, so I'm saying that 608 is for ordinary Muslims who don't know shit. So don't.
How did you decide that?
Because if you want to do this, admonish those who claim that God has begotten their son, it has to go from the highest levels of state. So there's no point,
admonishing someone. If
there's no point some stupid Muslim saying to some stupid Christian
we need a different example because you're too.
Can I finish? Because it's important what I'm trying to say to you. You keep accusing me of doing the same thing, and I keep telling you. Okay, so I'm saying, don't let ordinary shit for brains retards do this thing. So there's no point some Muslim saying to some Christian, but the Trinity is idolatry. It doesn't matter because both of them have no authority to do anything. So if there's going to be anybody doing it, it has to be, well, some leader of some Muslim country, writing a letter to maybe King Charles or the Pope or the Archbishop of Canterbury saying, well, we're little concerned that Christianity is idolatry. What can you say that would reassure us that it ain't idolatry? And if you're going to say that it's not idolatry to worship Jesus, do you see? It has to come from the highest level. There's no point getting some dumb Muslim to ask some dumb Christian in Speaker's Corner, because it would have no effect on anyone. Because these low-down people with shit for brains, they have no authority, as you were saying.
Okay, I don't know. I'd have to think of some other
You've been
example.
Accused of this for months now.
No, we haven't been doing it for months. So we just go, and then then we cut it off, and then whatever.
And I remember what kind of interpretation, and I said literal and permissive. Literal and permissive.
There you go. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, you accept it. Oh, okay.
Okay. If you can calm down for a minute. Look at those two ayahs again. First of all, I don't agree with you that admonish means you have to be that harsh, but let's pretend it does in this case. Literal and permissive. Which one is more permissive out of those two? It's 6:108. Okay? It's not the one you're quoting.
No. What I'm saying is 6:108 has application to ordinary Muslims. So they don't have to, they shouldn't be going around telling Christians, whatever, because they're only going to get themselves into trouble. And then when Christians curse Allah and Muhammad, they're going to get their feelings hurt and maybe get themselves into a bit of a fight. So it's basically saying ordinary people who do not have the expertise but for governments and people who have access to theologians and lawyers and blah blah, they can do this thing on behalf of the Ummah.
Okay, so the answer you just gave me, right, might be the conclusion of a judge who's looking at this. Okay, but what I'm saying is, if you want to be literal about the Quran, and we're going to just start doing this, looking at each ayah in isolation. The permissive ayah is 6:108. And your reasoning behind why you think it should be the other one is something a judge would be looking at if a case is brought up in front of him that has to do something about this subject. That's what I'm saying is, but nobody understands exactly how you're deciding which one is more permissive or not. And you don't understand that if you're just reading the Quran literally. You do not understand, get any idea from that one has to do with government and one has to do with regular Joe, regular Ahmed in the street. Okay, you made this conclusion somehow, but nobody knows how if you're looking at the Quran in a very literal way, like what you're saying.
No, but we've been through this before. So I keep going on about chapter 18, verse 4.
No,
and then you say,
you're not understanding.
We've done it. We tell them and they already know. And I said, no, it has to be official. It has to come from the highest level.
No, that's something different, Claire. That's because my conclusion about this is different than yours. What I'm saying is your rule, number one, here's the Quran. Then number two is the most, okay, yeah, I was out of order. Number two is we're going to take the most permissive interpretation possible on the law. Number three is, hadith, if it's useful, doesn't contradict the Quran, right? And now we got it going in three. This is what has to be developed, your idea on this. Because if I look at the Quran, let's say Sally down the street gets a Quran, reads all this, and she understands those ayahs that you said literally, and then she sees this other one literally, and she sees this rule, pick the most permissive interpretation. The most permissive interpretation is 6108. Okay, that's what I'm saying is you have a floating kind of subjective idea of, you have your own conclusions on why you think it means that. But the most permissive, literal permissive is 6108. That's what I'm saying. Not why, not saying it means this or that. I'm saying literal from the Quran itself, no outside source put on it, no historical context, no nothing else.
Okay,
this is what you're.
Oh, I would do it.
Yeah, that's how you would do it. But you're not explaining why in this case, in any other case. I'm not. I just picked this one because it's in my mind.
Because we've discussed it before.
No, not because we discussed it before. It was just easy to remember. So if how in this case did you decide 6108? I mean, I understand you're saying it means this and that, but you don't understand that if you're just reading the Quran by itself. You do not.
No. Okay, they're supposing that there's a bunch of Muslims and they're trying to work out what to do with the Christians. And a bunch of them want to admonish them, and the other one says, "No, we don't. We don't want to get into a fight with them, and we don't want them to be cursing Muhammad and Allah." So it's like both are permissible. You do whatever you fancy, both are permissible. If you don't want to be getting into a fight with Christians and admonishing them for believing that God has begotten, don't do it. But if you fancy it, then go ahead. Both are permitted. Okay, that would be how I would look at it.
But that's not what you said. You said you picked the most permissive one.
Yes, but I was going to.
Out of those two, it is obvious.
No, because both are. I'm not going to interpret away either of those verses because I don't like them. I'm saying they both exist. Depending on what you fancy doing, maybe you want to admonish them, or maybe you don't feel like talking about it in case they say rude things about Muhammad and Allah. I mean, it depends. I mean, you could be the same person and do two different courses of action, at different times. So I'm saying both are permissible. You decide, when you want to do it. But in terms of being permissive,
and that's what a judge. If a case comes up in front of them, and say someone's taken some Muslim to court for admonishing them in public excessively in some manner, maybe that's the charge, and the judge is going to look at these two, and he's going to make a decision on it. So what you did is you actually gave the judgment yourself. But that's not what's needed in this. What's needed is how to look at the Quran, decide the hierarchy among the ayahs themselves on these different subjects, and figure out which one's more permissive or not, because that was your rule, permissive. Now you can change that rule. You can change the rule if you want, but what I'm saying is your idea does not have that aspect in it where someone can duplicate it again when they're looking at laws. That's what's missing. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, I don't know what you mean by duplicating. I mean, I've said I'm going to do it this way. Maybe they don't want to do it my way and they don't want to do it their way. But I'm saying this is how I would deal with the situation. So you could have one person, he sort of feels that he has to say something to Christians, and he might, maybe want to admonish them when he's with a gang of Muslims, but when he's on his own, maybe he will, let it go. I mean, but both are permissible as far as I'm concerned. But when now we're talking about literal and permissive, and this pertains to the wife beating verse. So I think you know how I interpret it. I'm saying you're not allowed to lash out at her if you're the husband. You have to admonish her, and if she doesn't improve, you have to sleep apart from her. And if she doesn't improve, then I would say, slap her on the wrist with witnesses around. And if she doesn't improve, then you can, start divorce proceedings. So that
based
would be
on what,
my
Claire?
interpretation.
Okay, that's your interpretation of it. But what I'm saying is your interpretations are not rules for how to look at law. If you don't want wife beating, where you beat the crap out of the women, right? Let's say, see, this isn't how you're supposed to look at law, like trying to change it all the time to get what you want, but that is what people do. If you don't want wife beating to the point where you're beating someone within an inch of their life and they're in the hospital, where in the Quran is the regulation to not do that? That's why Muslims use hadith. But we're skipping hadith right now. I'm saying is you need to.
No, please don't skip. Let's stay on the wife beating verse, okay? So I'm trying to explain to you that I'm saying that the husband can physically chastise a wife, but it would only extend so far as a slap on the wrist in front of witnesses, so that the people around him can register his displeasure with his wife, and maybe the next time she does something wrong, he can start initiating divorce proceedings, something like that.
That's your conclusion on that.
That's how
somebody
I would deal with it.
Looking at your idea could look at that and not have anywhere near that kind of a conclusion.
Okay, but I'm just saying this is how I would do it. I'm not saying, everybody, and obviously I can't make anybody, follow my recommendations, but I'm telling you how I would do it if I were in a position to do it.
I get that.
So, would you object to it?
Object to what? I think they would have to go to court and do it in front of court.
Okay, I'm just saying.
I don't think they could just do it in their house. I don't think they should be allowed.
No, they would have to invite. Okay, the procedure would be, and I posted it on my Battlefield of Love blog. The husband would have to invite, people from his side and people from her side of the family, and he would have to, say you've been a terrible wife and you've done this and you haven't done that and blah blah blah, and then towards the end he can slap her on the wrist, and that would be over, and she would obviously have a. Okay, and she would have a right to reply, but obviously, if there's more trouble again, then it would have to go through the divorce courts. But I'm saying it's procedural. This wrist slapping is procedural, and it's not wife beating, right? It's just there to, show that he's very displeased. He's not going to beat her up, and because there are witnesses, he's not going to beat her up. And the next time he's displeased with her, he can say, look, I had to do all this and she hasn't even improved. I want out of this marriage or whatever. Isn't that fair enough? Isn't that fair enough?
I'm not against this, Claire. What I'm saying is it's okay. I'm just repeating myself. You don't understand what I mean. You're going to have to get someone in here who understands the idea, understands what it is.
Vincent understood it. Vincent understood it and
who understands what I'm trying to say. Okay, because basically you don't have a lot of Muslims that are even entertain your idea. And I'm saying is it's workable if it's actually turned into a school of law, even a secular school of law, even as a secular school of law. But it's not clear enough at this point of what are exactly the components. Somebody would have to analyze a legal problem brought before them in court to make a judgment. That's what I'm saying, is because that is what color, even the judges on the Supreme Court, they come from different schools of law. So if they're coming from these different secular schools of laws, like of these particular legal thinkers, right? If they're looking at that, and each one looks at it a little different, but they're looking at something that has a set of rules that's pretty nitpicky. Okay, you think the Muslims do need some way to derive the law out of the Quran where they don't become abusive themselves from it. And this is what those kind of rules, like the actual school rules, is what you need. I try to use the Sunni example, but I don't care what they're really doing. So you know what I'm saying? It doesn't matter. It matters only if you're talking to them so you can understand what they're talking about. But okay, like if they say, okay, you can't. We're taking this as a precedent. This isn't a precedent. I mean, this stuff all matters when you start getting this nitpicky about law. This is what I'm saying, and this is what has to be kind of looked at, and it has to be done in a way that doesn't become toxic on itself. Do you understand what I'm saying? And it has to be reproducible in another person's mind when they're looking at it. I can understand what you're saying. No, I don't think so. I don't think we need one legal person to do this, Claire. You just need a group of people to come up with it. Or yourself.
Yes, I know, but nobody will be seen dead talking about it because they're a bunch of cowards.
I'm talking about it. And it's always these conversations start with two people.
I need legally trained people to discuss it.
Well, you're deciding only only those that you'll accept to discuss it.
No, I don't.
You're looking at the end game. You're looking at the end game. I'm looking at the idea itself. Can the idea be turned into something that's really workable? And at this point, it's still mostly an idea level.
Yes, I know, because people won't be seen dead discussing it.
Well, I don't know. I'm not dead. I don't know if that's true. Vincent's not dead.
I meant people who are actually practicing law. You know, people.
Why do you care? This is a new legal system. You have to be part of a legal system itself to have anyone listen to you.
Yes,
in a legal system.
If you're nobody is speaking in terms of solving problems anyway. They just want to complain.
If I'm not complaining, I'm just talking.
No,
in an Islamic school, like let's say it's a Shafi school, they're talking. They don't care. They do not care what a Maliki says about the issue. It's a consensus within each school. If you're creating a new school, the consensus has to be within the school. You need the elements that allow people to be able to get to the point they can form consensus under the law, and you don't have that yet.
Yes, I know. I don't have a Supreme Court with, you know.
No. You don't have a method for making for someone could possibly ever come to consensus.
Nobody else will talk. I mean, you know, I get you disagreeing with me about it.
No,
okay, I get it. It's just you and me, right?
Claire.
Yes, I understand. But these situations have to be developed, and scenarios, and you know, what would you do in this situation, and what about that, and precedents.
No. That's just the chit chat and talking. That's chit chat talking. What is the method of secular Koranism that people are going to use to derive law that is relatively specific that is able to be duplicated across logic.
Okay, I don't understand the question, and I'm getting a little tired. And,
okay, well, we can talk some other time then.
Yes,
okay.
but I mean, if you could just frame the question in a sentence, then maybe you will get a better answer. Because I think I've answered it again and again. Anyway, but perhaps somebody legally trained will be, more helpful. Not that you haven't been helpful, because you have been very helpful. And I do thank you for your contributions, and it really is much appreciated. And it's good to talk to you again, Carol. I hope you're well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye. Assalamu alaikum. I don't know how to get out of here.
Bye.